Hello and welcome to this commentary for Aliens vs Predator Extinction. We're going to be going through the Marine campaign and I will see you on the other side of this introduction cinematic. That intro never gets old for me. So the Marine campaign, I would argue, is probably the most difficult of the three campaigns we're going to be going through. I'm just going to quickly go to options just so that you know we're playing on the hard difficulty. As we go forward, I wouldn't want to cheat you out and give you strategies that don't work if you actually up the difficulty. And we're just going to go ahead and get started. So let's just whack this on hard. And begin Mission 1. Marine 1. Violence on LV-742. Your Marines, designated Bravo Squad, have just arrived on the freighter USCSS Esmeralda. The Esmeralda is loaded with newly recruited migrant miners in support of Weyland-Yutani's mining project on LV-742. Your arrival is the culmination of an effort that was initiated some 4 years ago when a routine Weyland-Yutani probe identified this planet as rich in mineral ore. Since the discovery, the mining effort has evolved into a joint venture between Weyland-Yutani and the US Colonial Marines. Bravo Squad is classified as a secondary support unit, but an unconfirmed report of a violent outbreak in your sector calls for immediate investigation.
Miners have reported a vicious attack near a pipe assembly in your sector. There are conflicting reports of the incident, but the common story is that somebody went berserk and slaughtered a number of people. Your orders are to patrol the pipe assembly and investigate. Its location is marked on your map. Surveys also indicate there are malfunctioning atmosphere processors in the sector. Locate them and enlist a CommTech to repair them. During the mission, updates to your orders will appear in the pause menu, which may be accessed at any time by pressing the start button.
So as soon as we start this mission, we only have 350 credits to spend. So we're going to immediately use these to get another infantry unit and another medic. And I find it's always important to have at the very least 2 medics in your squad. And the reason for that is that they cannot heal themselves. So unless you have a second one, any damage that the medic might take through attacks or whatnot is going to slowly add up. So always have at least 2. And what you want to try and do, and one of the reasons why the Marine campaign I would consider to be the most difficult, is your troops are quite fragile and you don't have a huge amount of them. So a big part of what you want to do is try and make a kind of formation. And And by that I mean what you want is to try and have your most vulnerable units in the center. So as you can see now, I have the 2 medics in the middle. So if we do get attacked by any kind of aliens, chances are they're not the ones that are going to be getting hit. In addition, because you want your formation to stay the same, it's usually a good idea to put all of your troops into stand ground stance. And this means that they won't start running off when they come across any units. So already we can see we're getting hit by quite a few. Fortunately, it is just drones, they're not upgraded. Our front marine took a wee bit of damage, so we're just going to run him round, make sure it doesn't take too much. Our medic took a little bit, but we managed to take that out without any casualties, which is a good start. You'll find you don't get much in the way of credits of killing enemies. You only get 15 credits for killing any kind of enemy, whether that be an alien or a predator or anything of that description. So the main source of your income is going to be from these atmospheric processors. So with these, what you want to do is get your CommTech, who is, I guess, kind of the leader of your little platoon. They are the only ones that can call in reinforcements, so they are quite vulnerable, and you want to try and treat them like medics as well. Keep them in the center of your formation to protect them from any kind of like roving enemies on the outside. And as well as the stand ground stance, one thing I quite like to do is to actually put the medics into no attack stance. And the reason for this is they only have a pistol to defend themselves. So if you keep on stand ground stance, what ends up happening is the second you're attacked by any kind of aliens or predators, they're going to start firing their pistol, which does next to no damage. It's really, really ineffective. And it's far more useful if you were to have your medics healing any other troops that get injured during the fight than actually trying to contribute to that. So, I mean, their healing speed isn't fantastic, but even just the extra healing you're getting from them while the fight's going on is far more useful than a couple of stray rounds from a 9mm. So, I'd suggest using that most of the time. So we come to our first objective, which is this place that has been absolutely taken out by the aliens. So we're just going to move down south, and down south from here is our next landing pad. So we're going to make use of this to call in a few reinforcements. The atmospheric processors, once you heal them, you'll see that they have a second bar that's yellow. So once they're repaired, they will keep churning out, well, clean air because they're atmospheric processors. And this will generate a steady source of income. Now the problem is that if you were to then leave the Atmos and it gets attacked and it falls below 75% of its maximum health, then they stop generating that oxygen. Eventually, once they've generated all the oxygen they can, they'll just blow up. So there's a limit to how much money you can get from each one. But you kind of have to weigh up the pros and cons. Do you have the time to keep your troops around an Atmo to protect it so you get the full amount of money from them, or do you need to press on and just hope it doesn't get attacked? And that's not always going to be clear. There are some cases where the correct answer is one and others where the correct answer is the other. So when you're calling in reinforcements, you have to be near a landing pad, and it takes about 30 seconds, and you can only have 6 at a time, which is why the Marines are the slowest to reinforce out of all of the factions. But one thing you can do without worrying about a landing pad is to actually upgrade your troops, which on this mission the only option we have to upgrade is our infantry, which is actually a pretty good upgrade. So it's going to give them heavier armor. As you can see, we're kind of getting mauled by these aliens, but we are holding our own really well. A few of our troops took a little bit of a beating, but again, because they are just unupgraded drones and runners, we've been able to take them all out without suffering any casualties. And the reason for that is, as they kind of pour over your formation, what ends up happening is that they will attack different units, which means that the damage gets spread out across all of your units rather than being lumped into one. So in that way they can kind of come out of relatively insurmountable odds just by spreading the damage across all of them. So we're just going to order a few more medics because we have a little bit of healing to do now, and get some more infantry. So as well as having more armor with the upgraded infantry, They also have more health, so they've gone from 200 to 300 HP. And the assault, sorry, not the assault rifles, the pulse rifles that they use have now been upgraded to have a grenade launcher attachment on the bottom, which they will automatically use at medium to long range. And a big benefit of the grenade launcher is, even though it's an explosive, it won't harm your own troops. So when you have a formation like this, what ends up happening is that you can have some of your infantry at the back of your formation, firing grenades to hit aliens at the front of the formation, and in that way they kind of just cover each other. So again, we're just going to do a little bit of rearranging, try and see your formation like a suite, where you want to keep the soft nougaty inside protected, and then you want to have the hard, candy shell outer made up of infantry to protect those in between. We're just going to give them a little while, because although we didn't suffer any casualties, we did take quite a hefty amount of damage across all of our troops. Just give them a little time to heal up before we move onwards. And one of the biggest problems you're going to come across is keeping them in damn formation. Sometimes the AI is a little bit fucky and they'll start to wander off, but just keeping them together is what you want to be doing with the Marines in 95% of situations. When you start splitting your troops up and you start having some go one place, some go the other place, they're liable to get picked off and taken out. So keep your squad together at all times. The only reason I'm splitting them up here is because I want to keep the more vulnerable units out back, because we can have our formation fucked up a little bit by going through that door. So we're going to send the tough infantry in first because they can take the beating, and then once they've cleared the way, we can bring in the more fragile medics and CommTechs. And this is what I mean. This is going to be the hard... the biggest threat you have dealing with Marines is the fucking pathfinding of the troops you have. So more so than any other faction, formations are very important. So when you have units that just start getting bugged on walls and wandering off and going AWOL, it's going to fuck you up a lot more as Marines than anything else. So try to keep an eye on that and basically just kind of babysit your troops. But anyway, we've done it. We didn't have an optional objective for this mission. We only had to do it in under the time limit, which was 15 minutes, which we've done. On to mission 2. Marine 2. Alien Incident Reviewed. USCM Command is currently consulting with research scientist Dr. Samuel Kadinsky on an analysis of the creatures neutralized during your previous mission. Similar outbreaks will not be tolerated, as Weyland-Yutani demands that there be no further delays to its mining operations. Marine Command is looking into other possible disturbances and requires a broad communications network be built to track and coordinate efforts. Marine personnel are working around the clock to keep the peace and to avoid any additional setbacks.
Your ultimate objective in this mission is to deploy a network relay device that is central to the communications network currently under construction. First, you are to locate and secure the network relay that is stored in an outpost to the north with whom contact has been lost. A synthetic engineer is the only unit cleared to handle the device, so make sure one is available when it is located. Once the network relay is secured, await further orders, as telemetry engineers are now working to determine its optimal deployment location. Optional goals will arise during a mission and are displayed on the pause menu. They are worthy goals, but are not required for a successful mission.
So as is a running theme with most of the missions in this game, Mission 2 for the Marines is the second most difficult mission you're going to come across, at least from my analysis. One thing you want to do very early on is put your Flamethrower to not attack. And the reason for this is that in this mission you're going to be accosted by a very large number of runner aliens. And a runner alien, if it is killed by flame, will explode violently and do a lot of damage to your ragtag motley of Marines. And it definitely makes certain sections of this quite frustrating, because you'll also be attacked by a lot of warriors and a lot of Praetorians. And both of these can spray out a acid over a large number of your troops, and the way to neutralize them is through flame. However, the amount of damage you're going to suffer from warriors and Praetorians spurting acid is absolutely nothing compared to the amount of damage that's going to happen if a runner blows up in your formation. As such, it's far wiser to just keep your flamethrower in a no attack stance and just keep him around the outside of your formation to basically just try and tank as much damage as possible. And because he's quite heavily armored, in fact he has a little bit more health than your standard infantry, so using him as a form of bodyguard is probably your best bet. The other reason why this mission is quite difficult, not just because we now have warriors, but we don't have a huge amount of time to deal with both the optional objective that we're being tasked with and to complete the main purpose of our mission. So the optional objective for this is to kill the alien queen. Now the alien queen can be found in the northwest side of this map, and she herself isn't really too difficult to take out. They don't do a very good job of guarding her. There's not many aliens around, so she's actually not too difficult to take out. The problem is it's very far out of the way from the path you're normally going to want to use to get to the end of the mission. And you only have 23 minutes to do this entire level, so you end up being on a very tight time limit. And that's why we've ended up abandoning the first Atmo that we started with. There was only 162 credits left in it, so it's not the biggest problem for us. So, and you kind of have to do that a few times. You have to kind of make sacrifices and not always go for the maximum amount of credits just to keep moving, otherwise you're going to struggle quite heavily. So I've got a few medics now to help heal up between fights quicker. I've got a few synthetics which are going to be useful, and the rest of it you just want to have as marines. I'm going to slowly push forward, again making sure that the flamethrower unit is kept to not attack, because if you were to squirt some flame over those 4 runners, you would probably lose about 4 marines. Like, it's kind of strange that they end up giving you a flamethrower unit on this mission when it's liable to do you far more harm than good. And you're kind of incentivized not to let him die. It's like, oh, I'm not going to get another one because you can't order in more flamethrower reinforcements, but in all honesty, he's not. He's going to cause you more harm than good. So we're just going to stay close to this Atmo and this landing pad just for the time being, so we order a few more troops in. And then, because we don't have much time, what we want to try and do is not have too many casualties. Every time we have to order in reinforcement, it's just time wasted bringing in new marines. And as I've mentioned before, we really don't have the time. In addition to that, you want to upgrade your medic quite quickly. The reason for this is that a lot of the aliens now will have special kind of acidic attacks or cystic attacks, which will deal damage to your marines and cannot be healed unless you have the upgraded medic. So you don't want your troops to be weakened after, through multiple fights. Now be a little bit careful, as you can see, trying to get through this crevice here. You will find playing as the Marines that short and narrow tunnels are the absolute bane of your existence, because again the pathfinding of your troops is not very good, and when your Marines get split off from the pack they can suffer quite severe casualties. So do your best to try and keep them together. Keep an eye out for any ones that start straggling off and running away from the rest of your squad. You can use the waypoints to help them go through smaller enclosed areas like that, but the problem with that is once you start using waypoints, the formation that you've set up is also going to start getting messed with. So it's a difficult situation to be in. Now you'll notice that the motion trackers that we have are not very good at distinguishing between different opponents. So we just came across just like an alien goat called a kern there, and the wildlife that you come across will come up on your scanners, unfortunately. So it might seem a little bit unethical. It might make a few animal rights organizations a little bit unhappy. But whenever you come across any kind of wildlife, it's best just to kill them. You get 15 credits for doing so, which, you know, isn't much. But the bigger aspect of it is that it's not going to start triggering off your motion detector and making you confused and thinking that there's aliens there that they're not. And you don't need any more difficulty in discerning where the enemies are as it is. So to go for the queen, when we come up to the first objective, which is that yellow box there, what we want to do is instead bust a left and move around it. And that was a Praetorian, which is again another big reason why this mission is quite difficult. You're going to come across warriors who are reasonably well armoured, and you're going to come across Praetorians who are very well armoured. And the main bulk of your force is still just infantry. Now, infantry with pulse rifles are, you know, pretty good generalists. They do reasonably well against everything, but they're not specialists. And against the more heavily armoured Praetorians, you want something harder to punch through their armour. The standard Marines simply don't cut it at this point, but we don't have anything else to work with. So when you're playing on hard difficulty, and we'll see as we get a little bit further through the mission, we're going to have to use a few tricky tactics to try and get through a few sections whilst taking the fewest number of casualties possible. Trying to do this mission without taking any casualties is technically doable, but is very, very difficult. So instead of trying to go for a no death run, we're just going to try and minimize the amount of losses we can take. And that's also why we've picked up the synthetics. So if ever you've seen the Alien movies, you'll probably be aware of what the synthetics are. They're basically humanoid androids that have white milky substance for blood. And with them being androids, they are far tougher, faster, and more resilient than normal humans. For some strange reason, we don't use them to use other weapons. The synthetics in this game will carry your motion tracker, which is also why they are very useful. And when you upgrade them, they'll have a shotgun. You still have to use humans for most of your weapons for some reason. So they're useful for scouting because they're a lot faster. They're useful for carrying certain objects, but they don't make the best soldier just because they don't have the damage there. But they can be relatively good tanks. So we're going to make sure that all of our tough units are on the front line here. We've just seen an egg come from the left, so we know that the alien queen must be very close here. So we're just going to very slowly make our way through. And that's kind of the way of playing the Marines, to be very slow, very cautious, and hope that whatever you're fighting comes at you just a few at a time. Because if they all come running at you, you do risk being completely overwhelmed. And there's the alien queen herself. And now we can use the flamethrower to do a bit of damage. Although be careful that it doesn't set fire to those runners. And there we go, the alien queen. When you have 25 people, okay, the medics weren't really firing, but when you have 20 plus people all firing machine guns at queen, she doesn't last too long. So, and you can, oh, but there's another one. But wait, there's more. So there was clearly a Praetorian off camera. So the second that the first queen died, she metamorphed into another queen, and we've suffered 2 casualties here because we weren't expecting to have 2 queens come out, but it's acceptable casualties, acceptable losses, I'd say, for that. And you'll notice on some of the health bars, they'll have a section of it that's greyed out. And the reason for this is that they've suffered from some kind of acidic attack or some kind of toxic attack from aliens. With the upgraded medic, we can heal through that health bar, but it does heal a lot slower than just stab wounds. So we want to keep moving, but you'll notice I haven't fully healed up everyone. And in all honesty, you're not really going to get the opportunity to if you want to make that 23-minute time limit. So you have to kind of push the Marines quite far and be a little bit harsh with them and not give them the time to fully heal up, and try and do it in between other tasks that you're doing. Otherwise, you're not going to have time. So we have taken 2 casualties, and we do want to replace them with some more Marines, but we don't just want to call them down straight away, because otherwise they're going to land at the landing beacon. And if you have 2 Marines at a landing beacon by themselves, chances are in this environment, which is just teeming with aliens, they're not going to last very long. So we want to wait until we get a little bit closer to the landing pad before we start calling in reinforcements, so that they aren't just picked off the second they land. So we're just going to move our way back down now, going towards where the first objective was. And again, being very careful, you don't want to just click the yellow square on your minimap, because chances are they're going to get kind of, or your Marines I should say, are going to get kind of munted on the side of walls, and they're going to mess up their formation and start running all over the place. And when you have half your squad running to the other side of the map, which will happen because again the pathfinding is not the best in this game, you're going to have a real hard time pulling them all back together before they start getting picked off, because there are aliens bloody everywhere on this map. And as you can see here, the CommTech clearly lost his cool and began his getting the fuck out of here mission, so we just have to pull him back before he does that. Now there are a few eggs at this objective, so we can either use the Flamethrower, whose ape suit means that they are immune to eggs, or what we can do is the synthetic. And what we want to do here, because we get hit by quite a lot of aliens all at once, what we're trying to do is basically get him to kind of run laps round, and in the hopes that the aliens will be so interested in the synthetic that they don't end up going for our troops. And we were a little bit unfortunate there. Usually if a synthetic gets taken out, you can then repair them with a CommTech and bring them back to full strength. However, he got taken out with a series of acid attacks, which will just burn through even a synthetic relatively quickly. But this is what I mean with this section being a little bit more difficult. So there aren't too many runners now, so I'm going to try and be a bit more liberal with my Flamethrower use. But you'll see you'll get attacked by a large number of aliens that are heavily armoured, like these warriors and these Praetorians, and you are going to really struggle to take them out without incurring casualties. So I'm using the Flamethrower to try and deal with some of the acid, but as you can see there are runners mixed in. And you're never going to be in a optimal situation where it's just runners or just Praetorians. There's usually all of the aliens mixed in at once. So you have to kind of come to terms with what is more important, using a Flamethrower to deal with the acid attacks or not getting blown up by runners. And I'll leave that to your discretion. So we're just going to sit here just for a little while now we have the Atmo going, to just heal our troops up, and this is what we came here to get, the network relay. And it's another reason why we want to have synthetics at all time, as the synthetics are the only ones strong enough to be able to carry objectives, and later on into the game there will also be sentry guns, and only the synthetics are able to use them. So once we get past this objective, we are going to be absolutely rushed with aliens. So whereas before I was pushing them a little bit, at this point I really want to try and give them a little opportunity to heal up before I push them further, because if you start going into the combat when they're only at half strength, they're going to get chewed to pieces. And unfortunately it's going to take a little while, which is why I've gone for 3 medics rather than just 2, because we have some of those acidic attacks. It takes a little bit longer to actually heal through the damage. So it's a case of being patient enough not to send your troops to their death, but not being so lax that you end up missing the time limit. So again, small corridors, the bane of our existence. We're going to move just slightly out here, but not move any further just yet, as there is a lot of aliens between us and the final destination for the relay array. So once we get out of here, we're going to be moving in a northwest direction. So we want to have more of our Marines up at that point, and again what we tried to do before, send the synthetic out. And what this will hopefully do is lead to a lot of the aliens focusing on trying to take the synthetic out, and because he's so fast he can kind of run laps and essentially just kite the aliens for a little period, which gives your other Marines the opportunity to get a bit of damage in. And that's how we're going to progress for the final section of this campaign, because trust me, if you don't and you play on hard, you probably going to lose over half your squad, if not, like, you're going to be down to like 8 men. You can get absolutely swamped with them. So just keep cutting them around. Once we have them get the attention of the alien, the synthetic, just run them around. And it can be beneficial even just running around your squad, because that way, rather than them all clumping up and attacking a few Marines at the top left of your formation, they might lose interest in your synthetic and start attacking from different angles. And as I mentioned in the first mission, if you can spread that damage out amongst several of your units rather than have it all concentrated on just the one, then you're not going to lose troops. You're going to take a while having to heal so many people, but you're not actually going to lose the Marines. And it's far better to take the time to heal up wounded Marines than having to call them in. Because no matter how much damage they've taken from acidic means, it's not going to be as damaging or as time consuming as having to recall in reinforcements. So you have to then go back to the landing beacon, then have to wait 30 seconds for them to come in, but you're also going to be spending more credits. And admittedly, we have over 5,000 credits, so we could completely replace our squad at the moment. But again, it's not the credits that are the problem, but the time limit more than anything. So it does seem as if this mission kind of expected you to have a lot of casualties just with how much money they give you. But how you were meant to do that and finish with the time limit, I don't fully know. So you're just going to be a little bit cautious. So once we get over this kind of mountainous ridge here, you want to change your formation ever so slightly, because you're now going to be facing aliens that are coming from the southeast. And more than a fair few of them. Again, it's usually good to have the flamethrower firing at this point, because there aren't too many runners. It's mostly warriors, a few drones, and Praetorians, and so the flamethrower is actually going to be a bit useful to stop that acid spray out. There might be a few runners mixed in. Again, the aliens kind of roam all over the place, so it's not always consistent as to where they end up. So it's not an exact science like there's one runner there. But for the most part, I'd say you're better off using a little bit of fire at this point. So again, we've taken a little bit of chip damage, so we're just going to give them a little opportunity to heal up, being well aware that we've been in this mission now for about 18 minutes. So we only have about 5 minutes left to finish it, and there's more than a fair few forces between the final section. So we have to make a little bit of a move on. And again, we're going to use our synthetics to try and bait out and kite a few of the aliens. And again, moving the medics towards the center so that they don't just get completely taken out immediately. I prefer them to be in the center, but we're not going to be getting too many coming in from the north, so if they're behind your formation, it's not too much of an issue. As you can see, there's still lots of aliens moving around in our periphery. So it seems that there's certain aliens that are just set to be in a certain position, and there's others that go on patrol. So the worst thing is if you come into a big clump of, for instance, these guys, and then you also hit from behind with a bunch from patrol. So we're just going to try and get these warriors' attention. If we can, in fact, I think there's a Praetorian mixed in there. If we can get them away from the main group, then we can have the main group kill the other guys. And the synthetics are, okay, he got taken out. But we've managed to not suffer any casualties from our main group, so his sacrifice was not in vain. And you'll notice if you look at our population cap, he's actually not dead, because he got killed by a physical attack, some physical trauma as opposed to an acidic attack. It means that we can go send a CommTech to revive him. So we've been able to clear out that huge section of aliens essentially without casualties, and that is the ideal situation if you can manage it. Now fortunately there is a relay station just before this final section, because there's quite a few enemies you have to deal with. So if we do take any casualties, there is literally a relay station right there to call reinforcements right down. And again, some Praetorians, and unfortunately, because we were looking at the other contact, we didn't realise that our medic was stupid and wanted to be a hero, end up on the front line, and as a result did not last very long. So on this final assault up here, there is a piece of Predator tech, a Pred gun, a specific one that only appears on certain missions, which has, as I recall, well over 3,000 health. So that alone can be a problem. That's compounded by the fact that there are a few aliens jutting around, so we have to take that into account. So the normal Marines are relatively tough, but as we've seen before, the benefit of the synthetics is that they can take terminal damage and survive. So what we're going to do is try and get the synthetics to go on the front line. We unfortunately went a little bit further ahead than we wanted to because we weren't fully healed up. So what we're going to do is use our synthetics basically to tank the damage. There is a bit of a splash damage, so what we want to do is put the synthetic just a little bit further ahead, and then that means that the gun is going to end up shooting the synthetic and prioritizing that over the Marines. Again, don't go too much far ahead in case there's some aliens lurking around the back. And once that's taken out, now we can actually push forward. And yep, those are the extra aliens. So if you try and just bum rush the Predator artifact, not only do you have to deal with that shooting you, but you then also have the aliens on top of it killing you. So you can take some really heavy casualties. But by letting those synthetics take points, they got damaged but they didn't die, and we were able to complete this mission, only taking a handful of casualties. And there we are. The aliens only got 4 and we got over 200. I'd say that's a job well done. Marine 3. Info database grows. Analysts consider the unidentified object you encountered as inconsistent with the alien's known profile and not part of the current outbreak. It's been classified as a remnant of an ancient war, and its case file has been closed. With the communications network now online, information is coming in from all sectors, and investigators are shifting through it to devise a plan to halt the spreading alien presence. Dr. Kadinsky is spearheading the scientific effort and requires more specific data. Bravo Squad is to support the effort with a search for a missing intelligence team.
Earlier today, a team of specialized marine intelligence experts was dispatched to collect data in the southern town. They are not responding to inquiries, and Marine Command wants them tracked down with a full status report of your findings. Unfortunately, rapid developments in all sectors are spreading marine resources thin. Therefore, you must execute this mission without the assistance of a CommTech.
So everything we've learnt about formation so far is going to be very, very needed to complete the optional objective for this mission. So we have 27 minutes. It's actually quite a generous amount of time to go forward, but we have to keep Mr. Hirsch alive. Mr. Hirsch has 75 hit points. Mr. Hirsch dies easily. Mr. Hirsch, you want to make sure he's put into either stand ground stance or no attack stance, otherwise Mr. Hirsch will run out and get himself killed. So what we want to do is, again, rather than use the synthetic, this time we're going to be using the flamethrower to kind of get these aliens to run around us. And the reason for that is that the flame, as you've seen before, will cause runners to explode. So even though the synthetic only has a pistol, it's probably better to at least have that adding to our DPS, because at the moment we have only 7 units, only 6 of which are even capable of attacking. So even just the extra pistol in this early stage is going to help us out. And we want to just make a complete beeline down, and as we come to this structure, move left but keep trying to move down. And the reason for that is if you move left at the part that we were up earlier up ahead, you'll come into a lot of alien resistance and likely you'll get your troops completely chewed through. So when we come through here, we'll find a bunch of chest bursters coming out of these aliens and a much needed CommTech, so we're going to be able to pull some reinforcements in. There's also 2 synthetics here, so get them to pick up the egg carriers, because we're going to try and secure an alien egg. That never goes wrong. And I'm going to call in a few more synthetics as well as CommTechs and medics and the like, just in case. Synthetics will actually be quite useful in this mission to act as our kind of our front line to try and tank some damage. And not only that, but because we need them to carry the egg carriers, they can come in handy in that regard as well. So we have our reinforcements coming in. Again, put them all into stand ground stance, and if you want to, you can also put the medics into no attack stance. The CommTechs, it's not worth doing that for. Although the CommTechs can be repairing synthetics, their submachine gun is not fantastic, but it's effective enough to do a little bit of good. But more importantly, once you upgrade the CommTech, they bring in an orbital bombardment attack, which is very, very handy. So we have this Smartgunner who is very, very effective at tearing through lightly armoured aliens. So we're just going to want to keep him at the back. Just pad our numbers out with just some basic infantry for the time being, because we don't have too much money. Just enough to bring our population a little bit higher. And we're going to use these 5 synthetics as our front line. And the reason for that is there is another Predator device a little bit further down. So much like in the previous mission where we basically use the synthetics to tank the damage, and also if they end up dying we can just repair them, so that way we don't lose any casualties. We're going to be doing exactly the same thing. And the Marines are going to add in, or the infantry I should say, are going to add in the extra little bit of damage we need to top them off. The Smart Gunners are very effective against lightly armoured troops, but not against more heavily armoured ones. And seeing as... Did he seriously just run past our whole units to attack a bit of metal? But not so effective against more heavily armoured units, so it's probably not worth investing too much in them in the early stage until we've dealt with the Predators. And as frustrating as Flamethrower units are when you are playing as the aliens, they're not something I would usually recommend using when you're playing as the Marines. As I've mentioned before, they're more liable to get yourself killed. There's a few specific situations where they can come in handy, but for the most part, don't worry with them. So the first 2 upgrades we're going to use, rather than it being the medic, we want to have our synthetics upgraded, because as I've said, they're going to be our front line, and also our infantry upgraded, because that's going to increase our overall DPS. And as we come to this section, there's a few aliens that we're going to want to try and draw out. And just a little bit further is the Predator tech that we need to be wary of. So let's make sure we take these guys out before we press on too much further, because we don't want to be dealing with Predators shooting us in the front and aliens trying to eat us from behind. So we're just going to hold our position here for a little while. Again, making sure not Dr. Kandinsky, but Mr. Hirsch is at the centre and back of our formation, because even if he's not near the front, just these splashes of acid can do a number on him. He's not armoured, and with only 75 hit points, even just the fragments you get, for instance, if you were to set fire to a runner or from any alien splashes, is liable to kill him. He is not not capable of withstanding much damage. So we're just going to take a little route off the beaten path to the right to fix this Atmo. That's 2,500 credits, so that's a nice cool number. And that means that we can get the final few upgrades. We're not going to worry about calling in the last few troopers just yet, because we'd have to backtrack a bit. So we're going to press forward a little bit further before we end up filling up our population cap. And the Predator tech is to the southwest of our position. So I'm just going to move our synthetics round just so they're at that section now. I'm just going to use one as a scout just so we know the exact location of it. And there it is. Also to draw out a couple of Predators that are guarding it. Again, if you can get some concentrated fire, they're not too much of a problem. But as you can see, they do a bit of damage. Even though we managed to make it back to our troops, they were able to disable our synthetic relatively quickly, which is another reason why we're using them. So we can just repair him and bring him up to strength and just send him back into the fray without having to worry about a casualty. The Predators do struggle a little bit with the synthetics in terms of not having them repair, because a lot of their attacks, well, usually acidic attacks will stop them, but a lot of their attacks are a lot more blunt force, so they don't have the same effect. So we're just going to charge in, and again with our synthetics being at the front, they're going to bear the brunt of the attack. There is a little bit of an AoE, but yeah, I managed to take out 2 of our synthetics, but they're not down for the count. They're just a little bit woozy and taking a nap. So bring our CommTechs forward, and we've lost that Atmo, but there's no point really going back for it. We have enough credits to finish the mission, so we don't want to be wasting any more time than we absolutely need to. So we're just going to take a little R&R just to repair them up. And do our best not to go completely mad from the motion sensor. Picking up little aliens just on our periphery. Not close enough to cause us threat. But just hearing, nene, did it. It's absolutely anxiety inducing in the games, in the movies, and in a few of the more first person, more horror orientated games. But for an RTS, it does drive you a little bit mad. Which I think is perhaps another reason why the Marine campaign is not the one that people seem most interested in, just judging by the views that I get. And well, predators and aliens are cooler than humans, so obviously there's more interest in that. So unfortunately these Oswalks are going to keep setting off our motion sensor, so if you want to kill a few of these just to shut the damn things up, by all means be my guest. And obviously with it being a motion sensor, not an enemy sensor, the hive nodes that you will come across aren't going to be triggered by them. So that, unfortunate. Our little infantry on the side took a beating from these drones. So these guys have been upgraded so that these drones are now using their spitting attack, which as you can see is far more lethal than just casually running up. Not only can they now attack at range, but because they can attack at range, they tend to focus one of your Marines as opposed to spreading the damage out across all of them. So the upgraded spitting drones are far more likely to incur casualties, whereas the normal drones are basically just cannon fodder. But the upgraded ones can be a pretty significant threat, especially considering because it is an acid-based attack. If they were to hit one of your synthetics, it's down for the count. You're not getting them back up. So we're just going to hold the line here for a little bit. As we can see, we do have our landing pad just to the right of us, and we do want to call in a few troops. But we need to make sure everything's secured, otherwise they're going to get absolutely minced the second they come down. So we're just going to move them a little bit to the right, so hopefully they should be in position both to defend any reinforcements we have coming down and also to defend the Atmo. I mean, we have enough credits for the time being, but just in case we do incur any casualties, we want to try and get a few more just in case, and obviously be very careful of Mr. Hirsch here as he starts to wander. As you saw with how quickly that Marine got taken down, if you're unfortunate enough to position him on the outside of your formation and some drones start spitting at him, he isn't going to last. And I have tried doing this mission where you just leave him right at the start of the mission, but there's kind of bands of aliens that roam around and they will find him, so you have to keep him with the rest of your troops. So we managed to hold the line a bit here, but we are taking a little bit more damage than I'd like. So I would consider for the majority of the aliens that you're going to come across, the best counter to them is Smartgunners. So we have the infantry to kind of tank a bit because the Smartgunners don't have as much armor or as health, but then we use the Smartgunners as the real 1-2 punch of DPS to just absolutely just eviscerate them. And the cool thing about the Smartgunners, as you might have noticed, is that their bullets will actually change in midair. I don't think that was something that really came up in the Aliens movie. It was just, you know, you just had her carrying this very heavy looking cool machine gun. And I think it was kind of the fans after the fact that, you know, called it, I think it was called the Smart Gun. And to try and make it a little bit more interesting, they did the fact that it has like auto aim and stuff, and it just kind of ended up becoming alien lore. Another benefit of the synthetic series is that we do get attacked by a lot of upgraded drones. And the shotgun, although it doesn't have a very high rate of fire, and nor does it do a huge amount of damage, it does have some stopping power. So occasionally you may notice if a drone comes into vision, they kind of get stunned, and that's because they've been hit with the shotgun blast and the synthetic. So it, as well as being a useful tank, they are a little bit useful as kind of like crowd control. And that's their main use. Obviously you can't have a full army of synthetics. One, they would be too expensive, and two, they wouldn't do enough damage. But yeah, as you can see, only 200 HP on the Smart Gunners, so they will go down quickly if they get isolated, so make sure you protect them so they can bring their firepower to bear. And we have to be a little bit cautious moving forward because our objective obviously is to collect the alien eggs. So we don't want to be killing them the second we come into contact with them. So, but you also have to try and get far enough in that you're not just going to get accosted by aliens, but not too far that you start killing their egg sacs. So move very, very cautiously once you reach the alien nest. And it's always difficult because the aliens are moving around, bringing hosts back to the hive and whatnot. So it's always difficult when you hear all these motion trackers going off, whether they're actually aliens or whether they're like the wildlife. And as you can see, if we're not careful, you can get absolutely swamped by several of them. Fortunately enough, we had enough firepower not to take any casualties from that, but when you have a group of them like that, and there is the queen, so we're going to try and not anger her just yet until the rest of them are cleared out, and I'll get her to follow the synthetic, and we'll slowly gun her down as she's very stupidly chasing him around. And although a lot of the queen's attacks are very much, they deal a lot of damage, but they knock people back, so it was unlikely that the queen was going to get any kills, because every time it hits one of our units, it will knock them back into the formation, so then she has to start hitting another marine. But it does have the negative effect of disrupting our formation. So get your 2 synthetics with our alien eggs, egg carriers, and get them to move up. Yeah, they actually do quite a lot of damage, those drones, the upgraded. Put them into no attack stance, grab the eggs, and then you are done. You don't even need to pick them back up again. As soon as they're secured, the mission is complete, and then you can just kill everything else. So that was relatively painless, 137 kills and only 1 casualties, and in 14 minutes. Marine 4. New focus on predators. As the alien presence continues to spread throughout LV-742, attention has been diverted to Bravo Squad's latest missions. Bravo 2's encounters with the armed predator device cannot be ignored. While the device's link between the predator and the alien species is unclear, Dr. Kadinsky believes they might have been a form of extraterrestrial cloaking technology, and that they might have provided insight into how to control the aliens. Unfortunately, in its zeal to neutralize the situation, Marine Command ordered both Predator devices destroyed.
Based on the location of the 2 Predator devices that were destroyed, triangulation analysis strongly suggests that a 3rd such device resides in this sector. You are to rendezvous with the Marine Squad already in the sector and join the search for a 3rd device. Recent intelligence reports indicate that the destruction of the other 2 devices has apparently caused some new terrain features to be exposed elsewhere on the planet. This latest development is leading Dr. Kadinsky to believe they contain some sort of cloaking technology.
So this mission is going to be a slight departure from the ones that we've had so far, in that there are absolutely no xenomorphs, or I should say no aliens on this map, because there are xenomorphs in a sense. The only threat you're going to be facing here are predators, so this is a predator-centric map. And given the fact that we are facing a different opponent, our strategy is going to have to adjust ever so slightly. So previously I highly recommended Smartgunners for taking out swarms of aliens. And whilst they're certainly not useless against predators, you find that the predators are a lot more heavily armed, and they have more means of attacking you, both up close and at a distance. And you'll find Smartgunners are not as effective here as they were before. Especially on this mission, you'll find funds to be a little bit tight at times. And in all honesty, the best recommendation I have is to focus on just having a lot of standard infantry and synthetics. And the reason for the synthetics is that there are only 2 units that the Marines have that are capable of defeating Predator cloaking. The other one being the Sentry Gun, which we're going to make use of a little bit later on, but not just yet. So we're going to get our population up a little bit first. We're going to be focusing on getting a bunch of infantry units up first, and then we can upgrade them after the fact, but we need numbers first and foremost. Now, one benefit of fighting the Predators is that you never have to worry about turning your Flamethrower units off. There are certain predators that they're not too effective against. For instance, one of the predators, known as the Spearmaster, wears armor that's almost completely immune to flame attacks. It will block about 90% of the damage, and in actual fact, the flame attack will end up charging up the Spearmaster's energy, which is what they use to maintain cloaking and what they use to heal themselves. And in the Predator campaign, I do use that to my advantage every now and then. But they're not going to blow up in your face like runners do. So there's never any problem of having flamethrower units in your army. Just let them do their little spurt. And the useful thing with the flamethrowers is because they do have quite a large AoE, you don't have to worry about having too many. Just a handful of them in your force will make a pretty big difference. They are obviously limited in the fact that the Predators have a lot more ranged options than the aliens do. So the hunters and the stalkers you come across will be able to basically attack the flamethrowers out of range, but that's why we only have a few of them, and we have other units to make up where they sort of fail. And you may have noticed earlier we got attacked by a Spearmaster who did a twirling attack and knocked a lot of our troops back. That's capable of knocking the infantry back. It's not capable of knocking the flamethrower units back because they're so heavily armoured. So we're just going to move to the right here and get this Atmo up to scratch. And I'm going to be a little bit careful of these damn stalkers. So the stalkers are basically the Predator equivalent of snipers. And as you saw there, they actually do a mean amount of damage. They've just managed to take out one of our medics before we could even respond to them. So there's two main strategies when dealing with stalkers. The first one, and as the game recommends, is to use sentry guns, which when you upgrade them have a kind of pseudo sniper rifle on them, and they're capable of returning fire if they're getting attacked by stalkers. So they're a good way of dealing with them. The problem with that is that it can slow you down quite a bit when you're having to put them down, bring the sentry guns back up. There's obviously time setting them up, so they're going to get a few shots off in that space of time. And we are going to use the sentry guns later on this mission, specifically when we come to the final section, and I'll explain later there's a good reason for that. But for the most part we want to be more mobile, so rather than use the sentry guns, what we're going to do is have several synthetics, and basically if ever we start getting shot at by any stalkers, we're just going to run them down. So we could stick around to get a bit more money from this Atmo, but we're going to try and be as quick as possible. So if it gets taken up by predators, it gets taken up by predators. We can deal with that, and we have enough money to get going. This is actually quite a short mission if you know what you're doing. So the optional objective is to rendezvous with a previous squad that had already made its rounds here and retrieve a damaged synthetic from them, which happens to be the only survivor of that squad. Now, the damaged synthetic is completely useless to you. Fortunately, when you find it, and it should be just around here, around the centre to the east of it, the optional objective is to find the synthetic, not to bring it home. So even if this synthetic were to now die, it doesn't matter, our optional objective is complete. So thankfully we don't have to babysit him. And also thankfully, he, as you might notice in the bottom left, he doesn't count towards our population cap, which is very useful because he has no arms. And even if you completely repair him, his arms don't regrow. The only use he has is when you pick him up, is that you'll now notice there is a yellow square on our mini-map. And that's where the final predator cloaking device is. So even if you've gone through this mission before, as we've seen previously, these devices are quite heavily armoured with lots of HP and a powerful weapon. And this one in particular is protected not only by predators but by pred guns as well. It's very heavily armoured. So we want to kind of come south of their position and set up a bit of a staging ground before fighting it. So knowing its exact location, make sure that we don't accidentally run into them. And here we have a few Krilltics, I believe they are called. I'm probably mispronouncing the name of them. And they're these kind of weird crab-like scorpion things. Unlike kerns that are only aggressive when you get too close or attack them, they will attack you on sight. But as you saw, they're not too much of a threat, so we can deal with them. So the Stalkers are a major threat to you, because unlike other predators where they have the means of cloaking, but once they start shooting you, they give away their position. The Stalkers, on the other hand, can continue to attack you even whilst remaining cloaked, which means if you don't have a synthetic to spot them, they can kill you. You don't have any recourse for that. And if you end up losing all your synthetics and all your CommTechs, they'll basically just slowly pick you off until you have no Marines left. So make sure you have a few CommTechs and a few synthetics to avoid that from happening. A benefit of dealing with the Stalkers, however, is that they are very lightly armoured and are very slow compared to other predators because of the equipment they're carrying. So you can run them down, and in actual fact, because they're so lightly armoured, the shotgun from the synthetics will stun lock them the same way it stun locks smaller aliens. So run them down with synthetics. As we see here, we're getting picked off by... I wouldn't say we're getting picked off, we're getting attacked by one, so we're just going to move up. Fortunately, when they attack, from where the red bars are hitting your troops, it shows from what position you're being shot at. So they give away their position, and you can take them out. So for the final section, what we're going to do is use the Sentry Guns, which I tend, again, not to like using too much because I think they slow you down. But for this particular section, they will come in handy. Now, a bit of a problem with the Sentry Guns is obviously they are Sentry Guns. They are not mobile. So the only way to move them around is to have a synthetic pick them up and move them, which for the most part is a pain in the arse because you have to deploy them and pick them up and deploy them, and that wastes time. But we can use that to our benefit in a few ways, which you're going to see shortly. So with the upgraded Sentry Guns, and you'll see shortly, they start returning fire the second we start getting hit by synthetics. And because the final section is so heavily armed, whereas so far we've kind of just bum rushed the position and bum rushed any Stalkers that have been shooting at us, we don't really have the opportunity to do that here. There's so many Predators guarding this last area and Pred Guns. If we try and bum rush it, we're liable to lose our entire squad. So we have to be a bit more methodical and try to draw them out and take them out a few at a time. So what we're going to do is basically set up camp just south. They've taken out our Atmo again, but we have enough credits now. We're not really going to use anymore. We've got everything upgraded and we have a full capped squad, so it's we don't need any more. So we're just going to set these Sentry Guns up, and we know the position is just a bit north of us, so we're going to see if we can get a little bit of info on it and try to use them to basically snipe them, because the Sentry Guns do have pretty nice ranges. As you can see there, we're getting hit by a hunter just off sight, but our Sentry Guns are working to counter it, and he is down. Unfortunately, as we can see here, we're getting hit by a Stalker that's just out of range. One thing you can do when a Stalker starts shooting one of your units is to pull whichever unit is being shot at to the other side of your formation. And sometimes the AI is a bit of an idiot and will continue to try and shoot at that unit and end up putting themselves so close that they can then get shot by your Sentry Guns. So if the Sentry Gun directly is shot, it will return fire, but it's sometimes a bit hit and miss if it's shooting someone in your squad. So as I mentioned before, the fact that we carry them we're going to use to our benefit in just a second. So we're just setting up a formation here. As we did previously, we're going to put our synthetics at the top side, so they take the brunt of the damage, which is fine because if they get taken up by the plasma, they're not dead, they're just going to get disabled. So it's a way that they can tank a lot of shots without you losing any. And what we're going to do is the first two of the three synthetics have Sentry Guns, and a benefit of when they get downed is anything that they're carrying will automatically drop. So what you're going to see is that the synthetics will tank most of the damage, and then once they go down, they're going to drop the Sentry Guns, and because they're in front, it is then the Sentry Guns that are going to be taking the brunt of the force. So most of our actual Marines aren't going to be getting hit, and we've actually managed to get in just the sweet spot here where the Sentry Gun is able to shoot this Predator cloaking device without being in range itself, and we can just slowly take it down. and now the Predators are reacting a little bit slow to the upkeep. If we had just charged the cloaking device naturally, we would have been attacked by all of these at the same time. So this is a way that we can kind of do a little bit of damage while they're still off screen, and our amount of casualties is a lot less. In fact, we've only lost a single Marine in that assault. Obviously the synthetics got disabled, but we can repair them, so it's a way that we can mitigate casualties. And obviously it doesn't really matter, it's at the end of the mission, but I try to roleplay a little bit when I play strategy, and you know, I'm going to bring every Marine back, god damn it. So as you can see, some of these guys are bleeding all over the place, so the Stalkers have just upgraded themselves, and they get these rather cruel barbed spears, which when they go into one of your units will continually drain their HP, as well as make them move slowly until they're down to 1 health. So at which point they are very easily picked off by other units, so have an upgraded medic to deal with that. But we're just going to pick up our cloaking device, and we are finished with this mission. On to the next one. And I have to say, for a mission like this, only 2 Marine casualties, considering you're dealing with Predators, and 53 Predators killed, that's pretty good. Marine 5. Alien threat deepens. The removal of the 3rd cloaker has dissolved the shroud that concealed a large Predator base in a remote unmapped sector. Military analysts have been dispatched to assess the situation and to make their recommendations. Right now, however, all combat efforts are directed to containing the alien propagation that extends throughout the globe. In support of this containment effort, Dr. Kadinsky has made significant strides in understanding the alien life cycle itself. He is convinced the lifeform contains abilities that, when properly harnessed, will yield instruments of extreme military importance. To prove his hypothesis and further influence the aliens' development, more dangerous specimens are required.
This mission requires some background information so that you fully understand what must be done. It's been observed that when a hive is without a queen, a Praetorian will be able to spontaneously cocoon itself so that it may transform into a queen. It is this specimen, designated a royal cocoon, that is the objective of this mission. Therefore, you must first kill the hive's queen to stimulate the formation of a royal cocoon elsewhere in the hive. Then, you must find the cocoon while it is gestating. A synthetic, being an artificial person, is the only unit that can handle the cocoon without disturbing the growth. Make sure you have one standing by.
So mission 5 is the first one where we're going to have the opportunity to fight every type of opponent. And by that I mean you're going to be fighting aliens, which is the main focus of this mission admittedly. You're going to be fighting some Predators after you've dealt with the aliens. And there's also a few Marines on the way that you're going to fight. And this is a running theme throughout all of the campaigns, that there's always a means with which you can fight your own type of units. So with the alien campaign, you end up fighting a subspecies created by Dr. Kadinsky known as the K-series. With the Predators, you end up fighting another clan, and when you play as the Marines, you come across other Marines that are like meant to be rebels or people that aren't with the USCM, or I'm not entirely certain. It seems a bit arbitrary. And I think to an extent it is. They wanted an excuse for each one of your factions to be able to fight units of their own type, just to, you know, spice up and give a little bit of variety to the combat. The explanation is sometimes a little bit flimsy at best, but it doesn't change too much. And that is the optional objective of this mission, is to wipe out all of the hostile Marines that you're going to come across, which isn't too difficult. We can deal with them relatively early on. The thing I find most annoying about them, and it's one of my pet peeves in a lot of games, is when the opponents you face don't fight each other. So you'll notice that the aliens and the Predators on this map will fight and kill each other. The Predators are quite happy to pick up a few alien skulls as trophies. The same cannot be said of the Marines, and I can only imagine the reason that this occurs is so you're not just, you know, going through the mission willy-nilly and the AI ends up killing all the Marines for you and you get your optional objective done. But what it means is that the aliens will completely run past the hostile Marines to come and attack you, which comes across as a little bit bullshit and a little bit frustrating, but it is what it is. We just have to deal with it. So as is the case usually when we go through this, we're going to set our formation up, medics in the middle, set on no attack stance, they can be healing up, and early on we just want to focus on having a lot of infantry. If we end up losing a few, or you know, something negative happens to them, then we can replace them later down the line. But for now we're going to want infantry, and I find that's one of the better ways of taking out the hostile Marines anyway. The Smartgunners are a little bit less armoured, so they can struggle a little bit. Whereas just having a few synthetics, as we've done before, on the front line of our formation to take the brunt of it, and then several infantry, which are also relatively heavily armoured, coming in with pulse guns and grenade launchers to clean them up, is more than a match for most of what we're going to be facing. So the Marine compound is found just south of where you come across this attacked convoy, and I think this is supposed to kind of give away the position that there's either people that have turned rogue or there's other human elements that are aggressive towards you. I guess in some ways it makes a little bit of sense, because we know from the Alien movies that the Weyland-Yutani company is not exactly the most ethical of companies, so the idea that there would be some people that are not too fond of them completely makes sense. And one thing you have to worry about with the enemy Marines is that with them being ranged, they tend to focus one or two of your troops quite a lot. So they're a little bit more likely than, say, the aliens to actually take out some of your units. So make sure you're careful and rearrange them in such a way that they don't just pinpoint a few of them out. And in this particular position, we're fortunate because he is out of the line of sight of our troops. But if we upgrade our CommTech, we can just orbital strike the bastard. So we're just going to position ourselves and try to get them into kind of like a firing line, or catch them in the crossfire, as it were, in these smaller areas. And again, with the synthetics leading the charge to take the brunt of the force, the shotguns that they use will be able to stun other Marines, so not too much to worry about. The only difference I find with the Marines you come across, other than the fact that obviously they look very different to yours, so you can tell them apart, they all wearing this blue uniform, is that they're also all male. So one of the few Marines that you can get that is female in this game are the snipers. However, the snipers that the hostile Marines have are male. It's just a small aspect. I think you'll notice that most of the hostile Marines tend to have like the same model, just with the weapon change. And I guess that was just, you know, it was quicker and easier to do, you know, save time and resources. Because there's a few aspects about this game, such as the lack of a skirmish mode and the lack of any kind of ending cinematic, that makes me think that it was a little bit rushed at times. And again, with the synthetics taking lead, we have a SADAR trooper there, a rocket troop, but we managed to take out one of our synthetics, but that's not a problem. We can just repair him up to strength. And that's pretty much most of the Marine camp. There's a few sentry guns just south of our position, but nothing too much to worry about, and they're really not the largest threat. They're more of a roadblock, an inconvenience more than anything. The biggest benefit of them, and as we'd say, yeah, we have a runner coming through to attack us, even though there are sentry guns below it that just ignore them for whatever reason. A little bit frustrating. Unfortunately, we don't start this mission with a flamethrower unit, so we don't have to worry about them catching any runners on fire. And those should be the last of the hostile Marines. And there we go, optional objective complete. So nice and easy. I mean, it's worth taking them out anyway, because they do have this Atmos in the center of their base camp. So 2,250 or 2,500 credits is nothing to scoff about. So after taking these out, we're going to go a little bit south. Again, there's some sentry guns here, but these don't count towards our optional objective. They're just in the way. And they managed to knock out our 2 synthetics, but we'll bring them up to speed. They're durable. And with the final 4 population we have, we're going to just want to have all of them be smart gunners. Because as I said before, the biggest threat we're going to be facing are the aliens. And in actual fact, most of the aliens, the overwhelming majority, will be upgraded drones in this mission. So whereas a flamethrower unit might actually be handy, because there isn't, too many runners, because they have a bit more range, the flamethrowers tend to struggle a little bit with them because they're so short range. So we're just going to load up on smart gunners and just absolutely blitz any aliens that we come across. If we had a few more spaces, I would have liked some snipers and SADAR troopers, especially for the predators we're going to deal after the fact. But for the time being, we didn't really have the space for it. I'd much rather have 5 smart gunners, and that should more than cut through everything we're going to deal with. We're not going to be bothering with any kind of sentry guns. Again, they just kind of slow us down, and they're not too useful in this mission, so there's no point worrying about them. We're just going to run the aliens down. And for the eagle-eyed viewers, you might be thinking that this map looks a little bit familiar if you've played the game before, or if you watched any of my other videos on this game. And the reason for that is that this is the exact same map that appears on the first Alien mission and also the first Predator mission. And as far as my mind can recall, this is the only map which is repeated, and it appears in all 3 campaigns. And I'm not sure if that was because they wanted a little bit of continuity between all 3 to show, you are playing 3 different factions during the same event, or if it was the fact that they got a bit lazy, or a combination of the both. I'm not too certain. But I do like the continuity that it produces, because in the first Alien mission, you end up starting a hive that has been disturbed by miners. So obviously the first Alien mission would have happened before the first Marine mission. As the first Marine mission was, we've had reports of miners being attacked and whatnot. And I do like the fact that obviously that mission ends with you expanding your hive outwards. And now we're going to the start position, which, makes sense that there's now a very dense alien hive. So there's a nice little bit of continuity there. It does seem as if the 3 campaigns are kind of running parallel. I mean, even the position of some of the livestock remains the same with Oswalks and whatnot. And I can only imagine that this is basically where the alien infestation started. And then, much like how insects do it, once a hive gets too big, they produce more Praetorians that will, or in the case of insects in real life, they'll produce juvenile queens. And I think usually it's the case that the older queen will go out and start a new hive while the newer queen takes over. But I think it might be dependent on what organism. Sometimes it's the newer queen that goes out to start a new hive, and that's how they kind of spread and grow. And that seems to be what the aliens have done here. So this is the original hive. And maybe that explains why there's so many drones, because this was when they were just dealing with the livestock that they had. So they hadn't had as many hosts as some of the later hives have. I imagine a lot of these aliens you're coming across, you could argue, are like the very, very first aliens they managed to turn. So that's why you don't have as many runners. In fact, you'll find it's mostly drones and then purebreed aliens such as Praetorians and even a carrier mixed in there. Or it might just be that they were trying to balance the game and they thought that was the better way to do it. I'm probably reading too deep into it. So, as I've kind of alluded to in the past, the biggest threat on this mission is not the aliens, it's not the predators, and it's certainly not the Marines. It's the fucking terrain. The hive that you're going to move down involves a lot of very tight corridors, and you end up in this awkward position where either you try to maintain your formation And then the pathfinding gets all fucky and troops start running in directions they're not meant to be going. So you'll just have some marine trying to leg it to the other side of the map. Or you kind of use waypoints to make sure that they actually go where they're meant to go. And then your formation gets messed up. So a bigger threat is really just trying to get your marines to do what you want them to more than anything. As you can see here already. Speak of the devil, already a few of them have gone, fuck this. This is... I'm not going into a goddamn alien hive. This is fucking bullshit. And are trying to run away. So try to do your best to keep an eye on the mini-map as you go through these more enclosed spaces, just to deal with any kind of cowards that are going AWOL. And that's going to be the biggest threat moving forward. There's a lot of tight enclosures, and the aliens don't have to worry about terrain the same way that your marines do. So you might be struggling to get past a certain section, and then you might just get ambushed by a bunch of aliens that end up running through a section that you didn't even see. You couldn't know that you would be able to move through it. Can be a little bit frustrating. But one thing I noticed is if you were to attack these hive nodes, the AI sometimes perceives that as them being threatened, and then they'll send some troops to try and take it out, and you just mince them. And this is why we've got these Smartgunners. None of those drones even had an opportunity to spit. Just absolutely shredded. And the upgrade with the Smartgunner is that they fire radioactive bullets, which means even against some of the more heavily armoured units you come across, maybe the bullets don't do as much damage, but the radioactive dot over time ends up racking up a little bit of extra kills. And it does mean, admittedly, the aliens and the AI in general usually doesn't do hit and run tactics. Usually they'll try and bum rush you, but if they were to run away, then they're going to take more damage over time. So it's quite a useful upgrade. It also gives them a bit more health and a bit more armor, which we're, always fond of. So just going to move here, and that is a lot of, and a few runners there. So again, a good thing we didn't have any flamethrowers. And that was one of the problems we're talking about, just with how enclosed a lot of this area is. They've managed to come and attack us at a section where we, attacked us at a vulnerable section. They didn't attack our synthetics head on. And unfortunately, as you've probably seen on the mini-map, some of my troops have, again, started running off where they're not meant to be. That synthetic, I think, had some kind of malfunction in his computing, so he's dead. And we've had two troops that we're going to try and pull back now. We have a few wounds to deal with some of the aliens we've been facing. We can see some of our medic there was just throwing his guts up because he's been tagged by an upgraded runner, which means they start producing spores and just throwing up everywhere. Kind of similar to how the Predator spears work. It just keeps draining your health. So make sure you have an upgraded medic before you start dealing with some of the more advanced aliens, otherwise you're not actually going to be able to heal you guys up. And a few Praetorians there, but they're just going to get rinsed if they try and come in. Thankfully they're being stupid and just attacking us a couple at a time, so we can just take them out a few at a time. So we've got our other troops back into position. And yeah, just look at the Smartgunner. There's something just so satisfying about just seeing them go in. It's just pure gun porn. So we're going to send our synthetic out, as I've mentioned, because the terrain is so tricky. We don't want them to kind of fuck up their formation again. So instead of trying to move them through, what we're going to do is try and use this synthetic as kind of as bait to shoot them and see if we can, instead of going to the aliens, bring the aliens to us instead. And we can see with all of the corpses there that is where the queen is. So that's the target we want to take out so they don't keep producing more aliens. So yeah, just pull them into our crosshairs into just this kill zone. And admittedly our formation isn't the best, so we do have a Smartgunner on the front line, which isn't ideal. But we have enough firepower that it's not making a huge difference at the moment. And there's just more aliens, just fucking aliens everywhere. I'm trying to see if I can get a shot off on the queen. Because if you shoot the queen and she's attached to her egg sac, she will immediately let go and start chasing you guys down. So I'm just trying to get that shot off. But there's other aliens that are defending her and making it difficult. And especially with that acid attack from the drones, the synthetic won't have an opportunity to come back if it gets taken out, so we're trying to be a bit cautious there. And here we go. Queen shot. And I'm just going to run around with the synthetic. And yeah, she managed to get a single attack off before she's just absolutely taken out. And now that the queen's dead, any remnants of aliens should, with luck, be coming towards us. And we can just fully purge and exterminate whatever remains of her hive. So with the queen dead, we can go and look for this royal cocoon. In any other situation, and we saw this in the second mission, we ended up having to take out more than one queen. Usually that transformation takes 10 seconds. But for the sake of this game, the royal cocoon isn't normal. In fact, it only has 100 health, whereas usually it would have a minimum of 750 because it's being created from a Praetorian. But for this mission, it's not actually an enemy unit. It is like an object, same as you'd pick up the cloaking devices from previous missions. And I can only imagine the reason for that is if your objective is to go and get the royal cocoon, you don't want to press forward and have your marines just shoot it to death, you know. So I think they made an effort to make sure that wouldn't happen. I think it's also a reason why there's so many damn Praetorians on this map, just to make sure you didn't kill all of them before you ended up taking the queen out. Otherwise, yeah, you've kind of screwed it up there. So we've cleared out most of the aliens now. Because there's kind of aliens scattered all over the place, we're probably going to come across a few more as we try to leave. But for the most part, the resistance we face isn't going to be anything that we've had before. And we just want to try and get out these damn tunnels as quick as possible. The longer we spend on them, the more opportunity we have for our AI just to go completely retarded and start scattering all over the place. So we're going to try and get out of here as fast as we possibly can. And yeah, might be a few warriors and drones on the way out, but nothing too serious. The biggest threat is once you actually leave the hive at this point. It seems to be that there is, and yeah, I see that where we've taken those warriors out, they just spread acid everywhere. It's a shame runners exist, otherwise I would really love flamethrower units. Once we leave the hive, and it seems to be that there's a trigger, the second you kill the queen on this map, some predators will drop in, so you don't have to worry about them up until you take the alien out. So we're just going to heal up a little bit, because just in case we do face them the second we get out of the hive, that's going to be a little bit awkward. And you don't have to worry about time on this map. You have tons and tons of time. I think you have like 45 minutes, which is a lot more than you need. So, I mean, we're only halfway through it already, and we're nearing the end of this mission. Most of what we need to do has already been done, so you don't need to worry. Don't worry about running out on time. And Jesus Christ, we just wanted to take out the hive node, and they're being stupid. You know, sometimes it can be quite useful to take out the nodes just to see if we can draw any aliens from across the map, so we don't have to face them while we're on the move. Once we have a defensive position like this, we're in a much nicer position to deal with any kind of threats. So it's just going to take, we're going to take a little while, make sure we're all healed up. Unfortunately, because we have taken so much like cystic acid and stuff, it is a little bit trickier for the medics to heal that. So it's going to take a little bit longer for them to be fully healed up than if it was just standard physical blunt trauma. But they're doing their best, damn it. They're doing their best. You know, they haven't got the best equipment. You know, I'm sure they've woken up several times and wondered how they could get out of this chicken shit outfit. But, you know, you got to do what you got to do. You got to pay the bills, isn't you? And if that means running into a hive of incredibly dangerous aliens to kill a 13-foot tall queen mama whilst you as the medic have nothing but a 9mm pistol and hope that your friends around you aren't so stupid that they don't fuck up, then you got to do it. That's just working life, unfortunately. You don't have much say in it. Not all of us can be trust fund kids. So we're just gonna try and get out of here without having any more problems with our AI movements. Easier said than done, but I think we're actually relatively home clear. And the second you come out, you'll see these predator bodies, which is to let you know that you're about to be attacked by some predators, and the aliens and the predators have been fighting They've done quite a good job to take out 4 Brawlers with relative ease. Especially considering they don't actually have a queen anymore, so there's only a few of them left. And sadly, what we really would like at this point is to have some SADAR troopers or snipers, as they are good at dealing with armor and the predators tend to be more heavily armored. However, the landing pad, there isn't one that's really that close, and the only one we have personally found whilst going through this is the one near the marine encampment. So if we drop 2 SADAR troopers in right now, they just get themselves killed. We perhaps could have been a little bit slower when we were playing through the start of this, so not to use too many infantry, but fuck it, we'll be fine. And there's the shrine, which, okay, Smartgunners aren't the best, but we've managed to take them out. I'm just going to rush these last guys and just take them out with overwhelming fire. Now, unfortunately for us, the synthetics, may God rest their AI soul as they go to Silicon Heaven, where all the calculators are, have made the ultimate sacrifice for our troops. So no living person has been taken out, but our synthetics, because the first opponent we came across was the shrine which set all of them on fire. If a synthetic's on fire or if it's been hurt with a lot of acid, it's unable to go through the disabled process to then be repaired up. But fortunate for us, the synthetics are relatively resilient. They don't get stun locked very easily at all.
Understood.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that even the Queen or the Vanguard are the only ones that can actually do that. And they're relatively quick as well, so we can afford to just call in 4 synthetics to just run to our position. And we're going to make sure we want to have a few just in case we do get taken advantage of by any predators. Although there usually isn't any stalkers or any like predators that's going to cause too much of a problem. There's just a few melee ones with the shrine. And most of the threats for this mission are now dealt with, so we don't need to worry about other troops. We just want some synthetics, so if any of them get taken out, we can carry the Royal Cocoon. And now just make your way to the start. So on the mini-map, we've made it to have a waypoint at the start of the mission, and we're just going to follow them because shit like this happens, but they just kind of break off and go in stupid directions. Again, most of the threats are dealt with, so if they do start running off, chances are they're not going to get taken out, or at least there's only going to be a few stray aliens here and there that, fingers crossed with luck, there shouldn't be too much they run into. But we're going to do our best to try and keep them together. We could just run our synthetic with the Royal Cocoon to the end to try and make this quicker. But I am a little bit concerned of a few aliens here and there, especially near the start of the map. Sometimes you'll find that a few of them will spawn just to make the journey back a little bit more difficult. So I'm going to try and keep them together. No point taking a risk with it, really. And I say that just oh man, I really like this game, but the fucking pathfinding is dog shit sometimes. You don't notice it too much with the aliens because you have so bloody many of them, and they move so quickly that they usually correct themselves anyway. And if you end up losing a few aliens, it usually isn't the biggest problem because fuck it, like, you make more. And I guess it kind of makes sense because they're more instinctual, so it's not an exact science. With the predators, again, they are quick. If they do get separated, they can usually hold their own anyway. And you have a much smaller population cap, so the difficulty with dealing with them is not such a big problem because you don't have so many units. But with the Marines, it's in that middle ground where, yeah, as you can see, yeah, try to do a little run there, and there's a few aliens blocking the way. So we're just going to pull him back to our main group to deal it out. But the Marines are so fragile individually, so fucking slow, and because you need formations to make them work effectively, they really suffer with the pathfinding. So, I mean, it's probably just as bad in all of them, but I mean, predators and aliens especially can traverse a lot of the harder terrain, so you tend not to notice it. But the pathfinding you really notice when you play Marines, and it drives me mad. Especially because the last 2 missions we're going to face have a lot of small corridors. That's exactly what we wanted, and that's what makes them so fucking difficult. But for the time being, Mission 5 is complete. We have successfully brought back our royal cocoon for Dr. Kadinsky, and we are ready to move on to Mission 6. And what we do? 135 aliens killed, and it's apparently only 3 casualties. Marine 6. Alien containment disrupted. On a few isolated fronts, an armed human contingent has been identified as hostile to the Marine effort. These independent forces are thought to be industrial bounty hunters, out to steal Weyland-Yutani specimens and bioweapons research materials. Elsewhere, on all fronts, the Predator presence has increased dramatically since the 3 cloakers were destroyed and their base was uncloaked. Predator attacks in most sectors have thinned Marine troops and crippled alien containment efforts. Aliens now run unchecked in key stronghold sectors due to the Predator interference.
With Predator forces confounding Marine efforts around the globe, Bravo Squad is to initiate a 2-mission offensive directed at their nerve center, the Predator base itself. Air reconnaissance of the enemy base has been foiled by Predator ground forces and an array of anti-aircraft cannons in this adjacent sector. Your current mission starts here, in this sector bordering the enemy base. You are to wipe out all Predator anti-aircraft cannons in preparation of a major initiative against their base.
So Marine Mission 6 is not only the most difficult Marine mission, but I would argue the most difficult mission in this game, period. So whereas previously we've kind of started off with, kind of just normal infantry and then upgraded, we're not going to be doing that this time. We actually already have 17 of our 25 pop cap taken up. So with the remaining spaces that we have, we want to be moving on to heavy hitting troops. Rocket troops like the SADAR troopers, snipers. We want high damage and high penetration. And I recommend getting 3 SADAR troopers and 3 snipers. And then you have your 2 synthetics carry the sentry guns. Sentry guns, in all honesty, are not massively useful. There's a couple of situations where we can put them to great effect. But for the most part, we kind of want them taken out because they do take up 2 population each. So what we're going to be doing is running a glass cannon type squad. So the SADAR troopers and the snipers do not have nearly as much health nor nearly as much armor as we are used to with the infantry. So we need to use our synthetics to great effect to keep them protected. And the idea with this is basically we're going to try and take the enemy out before they get a chance to even hurt us. And that is our best chance. Now, the reason this mission is so dangerous is much like with the previous one. We have aliens to deal with, we have Marines, and we have Predators. But all of them are in far greater number. Not only do we have a lot of aliens to contend with, but we also have the top tier aliens. You're going to be fighting Ravagers this game, which are absolute behemoths. And even if you have a full squad together, if you don't have things like SADAR troopers, chances are they're still going to kill some of yours before you can take them down. Which is why I highly recommend upgrading your SADAR troopers straight away. Now, another big problem is your very strong troops, your snipers and your rocket troops, are slow. They are very vulnerable, and when you're trying to move them around, a lot of the time they will be moving after your other troops. So you need to be very, just look at that Predator, 1550 HP. So more than any other mission, except with the possible exception of number 2, I should say, you want to draw them to you. Because as we saw there, he was still able to get 1 attack off on the Sentry Gun, despite being just absolutely hit with all these snipers and all these upgraded rockets. We have a lot of bullshit to deal with on this mission, and it is going to be very, very difficult. Not only are there a lot of aliens, but there's also a lot of Predators. So you will not only be out-teched by the Predators, but also outnumbered. So you're outnumbered and outgunned, so you have to be very specific with the strategies that you use to take them out. So the Smartgunners that we have so far and the Flamethrower units to an extent are going to be useful for taking out the aliens. You do not need to kill the aliens to successfully complete this mission, but I would highly recommend you do so, because if you don't, when you're trying to take out the Predators up north, you're going to constantly be getting attacked from behind, and you're going to struggle to take the Predators out as it is without your troops' attacks being diverted from being attacked from the rear at the same time. More to the point, because you want to protect your more vulnerable units, your snipers and your star troopers. I mean, just look how quickly our Smartgunner got in trouble then. Yeah, wasn't able to make it in time. We're going to struggle enough as it is, and the last thing we want is our more vulnerable snipers being jumped by aliens from behind when we're trying to deal with Predators from the north. So you don't have to take this alien hive out, but I highly recommend that you do. So the alien hive is going to be just north of our current position. So what we're going to try and do is put our sentry guns up near the top, which means that they are going to be drawing most of the ire of the aliens. And as you can see, the Atmo is already being attacked by a few rogue aliens. We're going to have to make our way back round anyway, so we can repair them later on. We're not going to worry about sticking around and trying to defend them, because it's just not... We don't have the time for it. This mission actually gives us 15 minutes to complete it, which means it has the longest par time of any mission on the game, and even 15 minutes is not long. If you watch my original video that I did on this, which I've now put as outdated, so it has a yellow banner saying outdated. Even though there's 15 minutes to do this, I finish it with 15 seconds to spare, and that was after multiple attempts to try and get the strategy down. This is a very unforgiving mission, and you need to get everything right, especially if you're playing on hard, to be able to complete both the optional objective and complete it in under the par time. I mean, just completing it full stop on hard is difficult enough. So the SADAR troopers, especially with them upgraded, and one of the reasons we wanted to upgrade them quite early on is the biggest threat we're going to deal with from the aliens is Ravagers, and they're not only going to attack alone, they're going to attack in packs of other aliens to help kind of shield them. The upgraded SADAR troopers will fire a salvo of 4 rockets, which not only do a tremendous amount of damage, but can be quite useful in the fact that the sheer explosion will cause some CC to occur, so they can get most of the damage off on the Ravagers. Now you see 3 of the fuckers. So we lost one of our sentry guns, and our synthetic got beheaded, but thankfully we can repair that. So that was pretty much the best case scenario we were going to expect. They all focused on one of the sentry guns and didn't just start cleaving through our actual troops. So that's pretty good. That's a big chunk of the alien horde taken out, is those 3 Ravagers. I mean, I think there's like 6 Ravagers in this game. It's really, really brutal. But with them taken out, and it's also why we want to use the snipers. They are useful for taking them out. But more than that, the snipers are going to be your best friend for dealing with the Predators that we face later on. So we're just going to pair everyone up here. It gives them a little opportunity to get more credits from this Atmos as well. And for those of you expecting me to use all of the different units, I do hate to disappoint you, but with the Marines, we are not going to be using the ExoSuit. And it's the only unit in all 3 campaigns I don't use. The main problem with it is that it's so bloody slow. It is very strong. It's a very it has a lot of armor to it, so it is a tremendous tank. The problem is, I think the ExoSuit is far better suited. And there's the Queen. She's going to do a little bit of damage to the Sentry Gun. She can take it out. No, we just managed to take it out in time. But yeah, just to have everyone firing. So, I mean, pretty much we just have a mixture of everything now. Smart gunners, rocket troops, snipers. just everything to try and do what we can to deal with the sheer amount of bullshit we're going through. Even a few infantry can do a decent chunk of damage. They're not as specialized, but it just means that we always have at least something for everything. So the exosuit, I find, is better suited to taking out the aliens than the predators. And the problem is, except for these aliens that we've just taken out at the start of the campaign, we're not going to be facing them much more. The rest of them we're going to be facing is predators. And the problem with the predators is that the biggest threat you're going to be coming across with the predators is the fact that they have so much more range than you do. They're going to be hitting you with hunters from a distance, they're going to be hitting you with stalkers from a distance, as well as their military hydras and blazers. And not only do the military hydras and blazers do a metric fuck ton of damage, but they have 650 hit points each. And the hydras in particular fire these kind of EMP rockets, which does extra damage to mechanical units, so to your synthetics, to your sentry guns, and to your exosuits. So the exosuits have these twin-linked Gatling guns, and when you upgrade them, they change them to basically like these bullet boxes that just absolutely paint an area. And when it comes to them dealing with hordes of aliens, they're fantastic. Unfortunately, we don't really get an opportunity to deal with that. They would have been an exosuit would have been incredibly useful on the previous mission, where we were just facing nothing but aliens. But when you're facing a lot of long-range units, what ends up happening is because the exosuit is so damn slow, the rest of your units will move slower to compensate. And so by the time you manage to get into range of the predators that are sniping you, they've already taken out half your squad. Even with the 900 HP that they have and the very, very heavy armor they have, they're not your best option here. Your best option is to match their extreme range with even more extreme range. So SADAR troopers to stop them from running at you, and snipers to counter their snipers. And even then, using that setup, you're going to struggle, because again, with them having 650 HP and quite heavy armor, and the armor isn't such a big deal, because with your snipers, they do so much raw damage that they tend to punch through most forms of armor. But even with that being the case, they're going to take several shots to take them down, at which point they might have already done a lot of damage. So this mission is very, very tricky, because you need to use your snipers to take them out, whilst at the same time protecting them, because they can't stand up to much firepower. So it is a very, very tricky mission to try and get everything right. So we're just going to order a few more snipers to help deal with the predators up north, and going to repair these Atmos, because now that most of the aliens threat has been dealt with, we shouldn't have to worry too much about them being attacked from behind. We're going to get a few more synthetics, because as with other missions, we're going to be using them as our tanks. And because we're facing predators, we want to make sure we never run out of synthetics, because then we can't track any stalkers that are trying to kill us. We still have one sentry gun, and we are going to try and put this to a little bit of use. Again, a big advantage of them with their pseudo sniper rifles isn't that they do a huge amount of damage, but when your squad gets attacked, they can give away enemy predator positions, which will then allow your snipers to deal the brunt of the damage. So they're more useful in terms of a utility role than as raw damage. And the fact that they can tank a little bit of damage is quite useful. But again, with them being a machine, they are quite vulnerable to the hydras we're going to face, of which there is way too fucking many on this map. Fortunately, with so many Atmos near the start of the game, which do have a lot of credits in them, you can at the very least have a nice chunk of credits. So we have over 5,000 at this point, which might seem like a lot, but when you're having to spend out so much on snipers and SADAR troopers that are like 450 each, it does not last long. And there we go, that's one of the hydras right there. And as we saw, even with our sniper shooting at them, our sentry gun did not last. Now, the problem with just running them down is the biggest The biggest means of dealing with them is your own snipers. When you go and move your squad forward, there seems to be kind of like a priority of what units will move at what point. Which means that your synthetics move first, then your infantry, and your snipers and whatnot move last. And the problem with that is if you try to run them down, your snipers will end up running as well instead of firing. And if you end up clicking on an enemy predator to actually attack them rather than just moving your troops, it will completely mess up your formation. So you then need to spend more time rearranging the formation. And as I said before, even though you have 15 minutes, it really is not much time. So the best thing to do is to do your best to send synthetics out to try and draw them into a kill zone where your marines can light the predators up. So we're going to move him up here, and we're going to position this sentry gun specifically right in the middle to try and guard them. And a real big benefit of having upgraded snipers is that they end up having rail guns, which means they can fire through walls and they can fire through terrain. So you don't have to worry about them not being able to get their damage off. So we're just going to move up here, up onto this heightened region, and hope that our troops don't spaz the fuck out in the process. And just east of this position, sorry, just west of this position is the first anti-aircraft gun that we need to take out, which, although they don't have any weapons themselves, they are always surrounded by these pred guns, so they will have a lot of means of protecting them. So as before, use your synthetics first to tank most of the damage, and that is our first anti-aircraft gun destroyed. We only have 4 more to go. Now, when you move up top, there is a series of tunnels you have to move through, and you can move through either from the east or the west direction. I always go for the west direction, and the reason is quite specifically for this little choke point here. So we're going to put our synthetics in front with the sentry gun and have our flame troops at front as well. And the reason for this is, as well as the military hydras, we'll also be coming across predators known as military blazers. And the way these work is that they have cannons mounted on their shoulders which have a hyper concentrated beam which move in a lateral direction across your squad. What that means is that if you stack them up like I've done here, then when that beam comes across, it's only going to be hitting our troops in front, which is why you want to try and position it so your snipers are right at the back. The flame troops with their flame armor aren't going to be taking much damage from the hydras, so they actually can be very useful in this mission. I know I've kind of shit on them in the past because they're liable to get you killed when you come across alien runners, but in this situation they are actually excellent tanks. I mean, you should have them at the front anyway because they're flamethrowers, so you want them blasting anything that comes through. And once you set up this position, you pretty much just want to try and draw them out as best as you can. As you can see, that's how much damage the Hydra does. You managed to take him out before we got back. Fortunately, even though they do extra damage to synthetics, they don't stop them from being able to be repaired. So we do have that going for us. And really, you want to hold this position and try to draw them in. And again, this is something that you only really know if you've done this mission before. And yeah, see, even with all of our snipers, managed to take out our CommTech. So we only have one other CommTech with us, so we're going to be very careful with him, because if we lose him, we're screwed. And then you just get absolutely butt rushed by a bunch of predators. And that's not something you would know unless you've played this mission a few times, but if you get caught out in the open with all of these predators running at you, you're probably not going to survive. So that's why we've set up this position, and there are the military ones, the Hydras coming in, and our snipers with their railguns are just going to go through both of them. So it probably didn't seem like that was too difficult. You probably just saw a whole bunch of predators just getting absolutely fucked in a kill zone. But that's only because we have very specifically set up to have the terrain in our benefit. I guarantee you, if you try and rush them with this group of units, your squad's going to get wiped. Maybe on easy and normal you can get away with it. On hard, you cannot. You will get fucking wrecked. So there is a lot of nuance to this mission, which I don't think it becomes too obvious if you just watch a video on it, which is one of the main reasons why I wanted to do a commentary kind of explaining the thought process and why I'm doing everything here. And even there, sometimes you'll have to have your synthetics move out to give their position so your snipers can deal with it. So synthetics, snipers, and to a lesser extent SADAR troopers are your absolute babes for this mission. And there's just so many of them, so many. Already, bearing in mind that the Predators, okay, the population cap for the Predators when you play through their campaign changes and it goes up over time. I think by the end mission they have a population cap of 24. But I mean, the military Hydras use up 2 slots each. And yeah, here we have a Hydra unfortunately giving us some trouble. And that should be them just taken out. Just so many Predators. We have killed more Predators already than we have the population cap as Marines. And Predators are stronger than Marines. And that's why this mission is so difficult. Just not only are the Predators so much stronger than you, but they outnumber you as well. And you have to really kind of ambush them. You have to be the Predator. You have to lure them into traps to beat them. And I guess if we're going to go all meta with it, I suppose that kind of makes sense if you harken back to the very first Predator. Obviously, Arnold Schwarzenegger spends the whole mission... Well, okay. He spends the first portion of the movie being a badass and killing a bunch of other humans, and then getting hunted by the Predator, and then he has to become very basic and out-hunt the hunter. And that's kind of what you have to do here. You have to lure them into kill zones. You have to outsmart them to be able to win. Unfortunately, the AI in this game isn't too intelligent, so that's not too difficult to do. So as well as the Predators, we also have a bunch of Marines to contend with. And unfortunately, the best way to deal with them is to run them down, because they have snipers and SADAR troopers. And we have sadly lost one of our Flamethrower units there. So every now and then, you're probably going to take a few casualties. The trick to this mission is to not take a lot at one time. You know, only lose a few here and a few there. Just a trickle of troops so you can replenish them. If you end up having half your squad wiped, you're kind of fucked. Because if you try to then make your way to a landing beacon to call in more reinforcements, you run the risk of the Predators just coming in surrounding you. And again, that's why we took the aliens out at the start, because otherwise we're going to be getting eaten from behind. So there's just so many threats going forward. And the biggest threat we're going to face now is once again the terrain. So we have a number of tunnels to move through now. And so you want to try and be very careful that your troops don't end up doing what they've done previously, where the pathfinding kind of gets a little bit fucked up and they end up running to the other side of the map. So we're going to have this synthetic lead the charge, and he's got a Sentry Gun on him, so if he does get taken out, he'll deploy that weapon and hopefully add as an extra layer of defense to our troops. Understood. Now, another reason why we wanted the snipers, not only are they very, very effective at taking out we're going to lose our synthetic there, but we're just going to repair him up, because there was all those Smartgunners did a number on it. Not only are they very effective at dealing with the Predators, but in this section you're basically going to come into a cavern where you have a lot of these bounty hunters, or whatever excuse they use to come across Marines. And there is a lot of them as well. The benefit of having the snipers when they're upgraded with their railguns is, as I mentioned before, they can shoot through walls. So you can have them completely protected in a tunnel, send a synthetic out, and they'll be flying through the walls where the enemy Marines can't even shoot back. So it's very frustrating having to deal with such enclosed spaces with the controls of this game, but you're going to have to do your best to try and use it to your benefit. Otherwise, you're going to get, again, gunned down. So move very, very slowly. Every time you take a little bit of chip damage, obviously stop, take some time to heal up your troops. And this also has the added benefit of, once we start killing some of the bounty hunters or other evil Marines, whatever you want to refer to them as, much like with taking the hive nodes out with the aliens, they tend to start coming towards you. And if you have a nice defensive position with your snipers, you can then start picking them off as they come at you. So just making sure we have all of our troops that don't run in the wrong direction.
Understood.
And we're just getting ready to push forward. The tunnels themselves can be quite confusing, but there's no need for you to explore the whole thing. Just try and make your way through it as quickly as possible. The Marines we don't really want to be dealing with as much as we can. And what I find is once you get to the north side of the tunnels, they tend to all just converge on your position anyway. I think there's some kind of trigger to make them attack you. And again, very annoying because the Predators and the aliens don't attack the bounty hunters, they only attack you. Now, much like when you took out the first anti-aircraft gun, when you get to the clearing here, you want to stop and set up a defensive position. Because not only are you going to have a few Marines coming from behind you, but there is a lot of Predators north of you as well. So we're going to take just a little moment to kind of organize our formation, put the more tougher and more expendable flamethrowers at the top.
Understood.
And we're going to try and send the synthetic out to see if we can grab their attention. And as you see, yeah, not just Marines, but we had a brawler come behind us, so unfortunately we're caught a little bit in the crossfire, but hopefully with our snipers we can put the hurt on anyone that tries to come at us. And it's quite fortunate that again the AI is a little bit dense, so if they're going to send pred guns at us which aren't deployed, I mean that's just good for us. It gives us a easy kill that we don't have to deal with them. And if we look to the south, there are all the Marines we've kind of just passed through. So the SADAR troopers will be useful in cutting off any kind of brawlers, vanguards, any spearmasters that try to run at you, and then your snipers are going to be useful to take out the much more lethal military ones that are going to be attacking you at a distance. And one thing I find particularly frustrating with the military hydras is that they will usually get a volley on your troops before your troops start responding. It seems as if the Marines have kind of like an inbuilt reflex time, and their reflexes are not nearly as good as the Predators, so they sometimes fail with it. But that's another pred gun taken out. And the second Predator anti-aircraft gun, as soon as you get north to this greener region, is going to be directly east of your position. And yeah, the Marines just very kind of them to just completely run into our kill zone. And you pretty much want to make sure that all of these guys are taken out before you move on. Again, we don't want to be splitting our fire between multiple troops. And thankfully, we are much more effective at killing other humans than we are for killing Predators. They don't last very long. They're so slow that they can't rush you. That's the problem with them.
Understood.
So really what you want to do, this Sentry Gun is more of a utilitarian purpose, is really just put this Sentry Gun to whatever side you're expecting resistance. So again, we've come across the pred gun here, so the synthetic goes down, and now the the Sentry Gun is down, which we're going to use to tank some of the damage. And hopefully the enemy Predators are going to focus on that over than our more vulnerable troops, and that's one way of taking them out without incurring any casualties to yourself. So that is the seconder? That's not a word. That is the second Predator anti-aircraft gun, and as we can see, there's still some pred guns there, so try to send your synthetic a little bit forward to get eyes on it so your snipers can do some damage, because your snipers have a longer effective attack range than they can actually see. So use your synthetics as spotters for them to relay that information back so you can start picking them off from a distance. So we've gone through quite a significant chunk of this mission at this point, but we still have a fair amount left to go through. And I think really the biggest test at this point is to make sure you are remaining cautious. There's still a lot of anti-aircraft Predator guns to take out, and they are all very heavily armoured. So not only do you have to contend with the fact that there's a lot of pred guns in the way, but there's also just tons of just roaming Predators around the region. So much like earlier when I said after taking out the first anti-aircraft gun, if you're caught out in the open and you're not in a defensive position to catch the predators in a kill zone, you will get churned up. So you do have to be very careful with that, and just really just moving cautiously and taking your time with everything. Don't make the mistake that the predators have just made by sending a bunch of pred guns completely unarmored that you can just take out. I think part of that is that they're trying to position them near the cave entrance, but it just gives us the opportunity to take them out without too much recourse. So we've taken out 2 of the anti-aircraft guns now, and as we can see, just east of that one and just east of where we come out from the caves, we have our another landing beacon. So thankfully we don't have to try and pull them all the way through the tunnels. We can now get troops directly to the north side, and what we're going to try and do is really just move around the top half of this in a counterclockwise fashion to take out the 3 remaining predator cannons. Again, being very careful because, I mean, just look at that. That's how quickly things can go south if you're not careful. So let's get our other synthetic up top. So all that was 2 Hydras and a pred gun, and we've lost a sentry gun and 4 troopers. I know sometimes when you're watching a walkthrough, because they've practiced it, it can seem quite easy, but really this is how difficult it can be. That even just trying to move a little bit north, and that was only 3 enemies we came across, so a pred gun and 2 predators, so that's equivalent of 6 population cap to them, and they've caused us a lot of trouble. So think back to how many predators we had to deal with earlier on when we took out the first anti-aircraft gun, and you can see just how quickly things can go completely AWOL. So we've lost our sentry gun, and we're not going to bother getting another one. We're going to have another medic to make sure we can heal our troops up, and a few more snipers, and we're going to rely, rather than having the sentry gun to point them out, which was useful after the first anti-aircraft gun admittedly, we're now going to just try and have a bit more of a front line of synthetics. Even though they do take considerable damage from the Hydras, at least if they get taken out, you can repair them. But a big reason why the Hydras and Blazers are so dangerous, I mean, the Blazers do a sweeping attack and they'll stop your synthetics from being able to be healed up, but they're not nearly as much of a threat. The Hydras, once they've been upgraded, those missiles that they fire will split off and hit up to 9 of your troops. And even though they split off, each individual sub-missile that they fire, as we've seen, can do a lot of damage, especially to our weakly armoured snipers. And a real big problem with them is that it kind of fucks up the formation that we've been using up until this point. Because they split off, they can hit your troops in the mid and even towards the back of your formation. So even though we have our snipers in the middle right now, if it's a case of dealing with Hydras, they're still not safe. And there isn't really a huge amount of counterplay to dealing with the Hydras other than just trying to kill them quicker than they can kill you. Even having synthetics up top doesn't stop them, because the missiles, again, they just split off and hit other troops anyway. So they are a massive, massive pain, and it is why this mission is so difficult, because there's fucking well in excess of a dozen of the bastards roaming around, and you don't have many tools of dealing with them. The Predators, for instance, one of them, the Vanguard, can be upgraded to have what's called a kill screen generator, which will take out projectiles as they're coming towards you. And it would have been wonderful if you had some kind of upgrade you could have on your Marines to, even if it wasn't as powerful as that, just to take out a few projectiles so you're not just getting absolutely rinsed by the Hydras. But sadly that isn't the case, and you get fucked up really quickly. So we're going to do our best to try and use our synthetics to scout ahead, and hope we don't have the misfortune of coming across too many more Hydras before the end point. Again, we're quite fortunate, we have 8,000 credits still remaining, so if we do take some casualties, we can replenish them. But again, the difficulty isn't so much in running out of credits, but in the fact that you have to move quickly if you want to complete this game in under the par time, or sorry, I should say complete this mission in under the par time. So the optional objective for this mission, which I haven't actually discussed yet, is to come across a squad that ended up getting downed on the north side of the map. So before we take out the final sentry gun, you want to make sure you have a little look around to make sure that they've been accounted for. And fortunately, these Predator anti-aircraft guns with over 3000 HP, they're quite difficult to accidentally kill. So if you take out 4 of them and you know you have your 5th one left to take out, you can just obviously just pull your troops back and go for a little search for them. And that squad is located in the southeast section of the north side of the map. So north of the tunnels that we've gone through, and then to like the bottom right of that northern section. So rather than try and get all of our troops up this hill, which is going to be a nightmare, we're just going to send the synthetic up to spot it, and then just send the SADAR troops because they have the highest DPS. The snipers were shooting anyway, so that you don't need to move them up. And just going to continue moving forward. Again, it still is an idea to try and use formations. So since now we're moving to the east, obviously we have our synthetics and our infantry bringing up the vanguard, which, okay, isn't effective at all at dealing with the Hydras anymore, but against some of the other Predators you're going to come across can at least mitigate some of the damage. And even against the Hydras will mitigate a little bit. And yeah, that's how quickly things go south. That's 2 Predator gun shots, and unfortunately that went to our vulnerable sniper, which took him out. And you'll notice there is so many Pred guns on this mission. There's probably at least 20 plus. Which in terms of population cap is 40. Like the Predator population cap, if you were playing from their point of view, would probably be about 100 on this. There's just so fucking many of them that it comes across as a little bit bullshit at times. But once we've gone through this mission at the very least, the next one can be tricky, but is nothing compared to this particular mission. So we're going to make our way southeast now. Just absolutely blast through that Pred gun and try and rendezvous with the squad that's gone missing. The benefit of coming across the squad is obviously they're going to add their numbers to you, and the objective is to make sure that at least one of them survives, but if a few of them die, it's not an issue. And yeah, we've unfortunately lost one more troop in that. But the squad that you come across is mostly made up of more high tier marine units, so snipers and SADAR troopers and the like. So they are going to add to your DPS quite significantly once you come across them. And we've seen the makeup of our forces has definitely changed over the course. We only have a few infantry left at this point, and it's mostly just snipers and SADAR troopers because they are the best for the job. So we have 2 population left, and what I want to do here is literally just to call a sentry gun in to see if there's any like roaming Predators that it can at least call attention to. And there is Delta Squad. So, and that's why I wanted to call just something down to at least make use of that population cap, because we're about to hit it anyway. So some sentry gunners, some snipers, some rocket troops, and once we've met up with them, now we can just focus on taking out the remaining Predator anti-aircraft guns. And we have a 30/25 population cap. I just wanted to call a sentry gun in because if we lose it, it's only 200 credits anyway, and they, out of all of the units you can buy, they're probably the one that's most resilient by themselves, with maybe the exception of the ExoSuit, or maybe if we got 2 synthetics instead. But like I said, it doesn't cost much, and they can spot any units that go past. And hopefully, if there's like a stalker that goes nearby them, they can take out the Predator, and we don't have to worry about it. So the final 2 Predator anti-aircraft guns. Hold on, I can't count. The final anti-aircraft gun we're going to be moving to take out. And as you know, no points for guessing that the big blob of fog of war that still remains on the east side of the northern section of the map is where we're going to find the final gun. So we're just going to press onwards and try and take it out. There is a shrine also located around here, so be careful if you run into that, because obviously that's going to cause you some havoc, especially if there's other pred guns with it. So again, just try and be a little bit cautious with your approach. I've gone a little bit faster because I didn't actually have a timer at this point, and I was getting a little bit concerned that I was starting to run low on time. So I did start to push my troops a little bit harder than needed to happen. I mean, a few casualties here and there is not the biggest deal. Obviously, we had the credits to deal with it, but I definitely could have done this mission a little bit cleaner, but I had tried it so many times, and just trying to get a successful mission, much less a good one, is difficult. So it was good enough for me. And there is the last Predator anti-aircraft gun. We're going to try not to explore too much, because I said the Predator shrine is around, and there's still quite a lot of predators around this section, so we want to try and not piss them off as much as possible. If we can just take this gun out and bug out, that is the ideal situation for us to be in. So we're just going to move him just down so we have vision of it, and then hopefully our snipers can take it out without putting us into too much harm's way, if he can figure out how the terrain works. And just fuck it, we're just going to move everyone up and just blast this last section. And unfortunately, again, I have a Predator gun defending it, but you can take that one out and then just concentrate all your fire on this last anti-aircraft gun, and that is it. That is the most difficult the most difficult mission in this game done. Thank the Emperor. Look at that, 190 fucking kills, mostly Predators. Ridiculous mission. Absolute bullshit. Marine 7. Extinction. Invade Predator base. A stronger type of Predator, a military type, has appeared in defense of the main base. They are better equipped and are much deadlier than their hunter associates. USCM analysts cannot agree on theories explaining the Predator presence and their relationship to the alien life form. Military planners do agree on one thing, that alien containment will be impossible while Predators are allowed to roam free. As marine strongholds around the globe continue to fall under alien siege, Predators have just completed a damning counterattack, one that effectively halts all scientific research.
Predators have delivered a crippling blow to Dr. Kadinsky's alien containment effort. A Predator raiding party has broken into the main research lab and kidnapped the Doctor. Kadinsky possessed a unique gift of insight into the alien and was in the process of finalizing a containment procedure. Your mission is of the highest priority. Your ultimate objective is to destroy the Predator base, so take extra care with the demolition kit and the enhanced synthetic needed to deploy it. First, however, you must infiltrate the Predator base and, if he's alive, extract Dr. Kadinsky. Escort Kadinsky to safety, then stand by for final demolition instructions.
So as we've seen previously, the biggest difficulty when facing the Marines is how bad the pathfinding is in enclosed spaces. So of course the final mission is going to take place almost predominantly in enclosed spaces, because fuck you, that's why. When you go to take the Predator base out, there are lots of tight corridors and you're going to struggle to make heads and tails going through it. In addition to this, and we've seen just how deadly the Hydras are at taking out synthetics, we have an enhanced synthetic which mercifully has 600 HP as opposed to 350 HP. But if he goes down, boom, mission failed. So although I don't consider this as difficult as the previous one we've just had to deal with, it is by no means an easy mission and is very easy for things to go awry. Before you start tackling the Predator base, you'll want to move east across this grassy terrain and try and collect as many atmos as possible. Once you get into the Predator base, as you quite probably imagine because you're inside that facility, there's no deployment beacons. So if you start incurring casualties, you're going to have to bring your troops all the way back out to meet them, or bring them all the way in, at which point it's very easy for them to get cut off by roaming predators. So on this mission, more than perhaps any other, you really want to make every effort possible to minimize any kind of casualties that you take, because reinforcing them and getting redeployment is more difficult now than ever before. Add to that the fact that you've got to look after the synthetic. This mission can be a bit tricky, and it's actually one of the few missions that I highly recommend you bring some flamethrower troops on, and that will become apparent a little bit later in the mission. Other than flamethrower troops, as you've seen previously, snipers are going to be your absolute best friend. Not only are they incredibly devastating at taking targets out from a distance, but because the overwhelming majority of the fighting is going to be taking place inside with tight corridors and whatnot, having snipers means that you can shoot enemy predators through walls and they can't retaliate on you. So snipers are going to be your best friend. Still pick up a few SADAR troopers, because there is more than a handful of melee troops that are going to try and rush you. Brawlers, spearmasters, vanguards, etc. So you want to still have the DPS from your rocket troops to take them out, and then everything else pretty much to just be snipers, which is going to make it quite expensive. Obviously there's 400 credits being used for each sniper, and then 450 for the SADAR troopers. The troops that you start with, there's a nice little mix. Infantry at this point are just not going to cut it. So any infantry that you happen to have, yeah, sure, that's fine, keep them with you, but there's no point getting any more, because they're just not going to be standing up against the type of predators we're going to be dealing with. So get all of your troops in as quick as you can. I would recommend upgrading the synthetics as a priority, so that your enhanced synthetic has a little bit more chance of surviving if things go awry. If he get, like with a normal synthetic, if he gets taken down, you can repair him. It's only if he gets taken down by like fire that he can't do anything. So still, even though he is quite tanky, don't use him to soak up some damage. He's far too valuable to end up losing, because, well, the whole mission fails if he goes down. I don't know why you can't just use a normal synthetic. Maybe it's just a way they're trying to up the difficulty in a somewhat arbitrary means. I mean, literally he's just carrying a bomb. Why do you need an enhanced synthetic with glowing red arms to do that? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it is what it is. Now, fortunately, we're not going to be getting ambushed quite as much as we've had in the past. For the most part, when you're moving through the predator base, you're going to be moving northwards. So if you have most of your troops, or I should say your more heavily armoured troops, such as your flamethrower units and your infantry and your synthetics, not the enhanced one, just the normal synthetics, at the north side of your formation, that's usually a safe bet. And as you can see, already come across a fucking Hydra that we thankfully were able to take out without incurring any casualties. But we have a few stalkers giving us some grief, so let's just cover the entrance and just give these guys hell. And unfortunately we weren't able to take them out before losing one of our infantry units, but oh well. If anything, it's actually kind of beneficial, because it means we can get something a bit more useful. I'm quite fond of using synthetics for this mission, purely for their tanking capabilities. So synthetics, snipers, a few SADAR troopers, and then a little bit of everything else. Obviously you want your medics to heal your troops up, and you want your CommTech just in case things go a little bit awry and need some reinforcements. Again, the ExoSuit can be kind of useful in this mission, because it is such tight corridors that he can pretty much just sit in a corridor and just tank everything. So I don't necessarily think that it's a bad idea to use an exosuit. They can be useful, especially if you have your snipers to cover them if they start getting sniped from a distance. But they're so slow that I prefer not to use them. You do have a decent chunk of time to do this, but again, it's better not to risk it. And if you end up using an exosuit, because they are so slow, and not just the fact that they're so slow, but because they're a single entity, trying to repair them after fights is where it really slows you down. So not only are they quite immobile at actually moving, but it's going to take your CommTech about a minute to fully repair them up to speed. And that's time you don't have. That more than anything is what's going to cost you. Whereas at least if you have synthetics and you have a few CommTechs, you can have a few of them healing them individually. You can't have two CommTechs healing the same exosuit. And it's got such a big health pool, and if they're going to be tanking everything, that's where most of your time is going to get eaten up, just trying to bring them back up to speed after they've had a fight. So wouldn't recommend it if you're trying to go for under the par time. A fun unit, but just not practical in most situations. Now what you want to try and do is get your troops into kind of like a corridor like this. Have your flamethrower troops at the center to try and tank it, and then again luring synthetics out. And because we have the railgun attachment, they can be shooting them before they even know our troops are there, and the second they get round the corner to actually cause us any kind of threat, we're just going to unload with all of our troops on them. So more than anything, be using your corridors to your advantage to lure the predators into ambushes. That way that they can't hit you too much, especially with the blazers being such a huge threat on this level. If you get them in a tight corridor like that and they start sweeping across laterally with their like laser cannons, whatever the fuck you want to call them, they're only going to be hitting 2 or 3 of your marines, and the other 22 are safe. So use the terrain to your advantage to the best of your ability. I mean, even here, able to get some sniper shots off when they lumber at us. And thankfully the vanguards really aren't much of a threat. It was always kind of ironic that in the game files it sort of talks about how the vanguards are meant to be, well, they're the vanguards, they're the elite hunters, they're the best of the best, pretty much. The best of the hunters before you hit the military grade. But they're so fucking slow with their scythes that they are just not useful in almost any situation. I mean, even in my Predator playthrough, I literally only use them for a utilitarian role. And when you face them as aliens and marines, they are one of the least threatening predators you're going to come across. And the idea was meant to be that with the scythes that they have, that they're the ways of taking down big units. So they're meant to like counter, you know, alien queens and alien ravagers and stuff like that. But if you try to get them to take out a queen, the queen's just going to knock them back. Like this. They're so slow and ineffective. They just seem to embody everything that the predators aren't about. The predators are about speed, agility, and stealth. The vanguard has none of that. None of that going for you. So they're not a threat at all. And in fact, you're going to be quite thankful when you come across vanguards, because they're far easier to gun down before they can do any damage. It's, as I said before, the ranged predators that is going to cause you the biggest threat. So the military hydras and blazers, yes, but also the stalkers and the hunters. And fortunately, because there's some weird turning thing that managed to block our approach a little bit, and we're able to snipe him out without him turning around and hurting us. And there is a lot of spearmasters who, if they get into melee range with their plasma spears, will absolutely churn for your troops. But you have so much firepower that the chances of them even touching one of your troops is relatively minimal. Especially, I mean, this is why we have the SADAR troopers and not just snipers. Because if the spearmasters try to run at you, you've got 3 SADAR troopers, each firing 4 rockets. So that's 12 rockets. They're not going to be able to get through that without getting taken out. And unfortunately, the sniper's taking a little bit of flame damage. So we're going to run the synthetic up, and the idea was if we can get close to the blazer with the synthetic, then it's going to stop that blaze very close to him, and it's not going to be able to hit our snipers. So admittedly, I don't have the best formation at the moment, but a big reason for that is it's so hard to actually maintain when you're in these tight enclosed rooms. So this place can be a little bit of a maze. And there are 2 objectives that you need to do, or rather I should say there is a main objective and your optional objective. And your optional objective is to try and find an alien artifact, which is why you want a secondary synthetic with you at all times, as you need someone else to pick it up. And yeah, just look at that. He's just getting sniped through the walls. They'll never see it coming. And same with these guys. I mean, this. I mentioned previously, don't use your synthetic as a tank, and that's literally what I've just gone and done. But when you upgrade him, he goes from having 600 health to 900 health. So we can do a few things with him. A few things. I know I've contradicted myself a little bit then. Do as I say, not as I do. He's kind of good for scouting because we can pull him back and pull him behind our troops. But don't have him on the front line if you're going to go into a big engagement. Even with 900 health, if he gets caught out by a Hydra, that's going to not last very long. So we're going to try and use our other synthetics for most of the scouting ahead. So there is an optional objective to find a Predator artifact and bring that back, because even though we've lost, I mean, I can only assume if you've been fighting. Where are you going? East. And so it begins, the AWOL. Previously it was moving towards an alien hive. They're like, fuck this chicken shit, I'm out. Now you're telling them to go towards a Predator base. That's arguably even worse. So, especially with a flamethrower, you're just like, they're going to shoot me with a fucking plasma caster, and I have this fucking pea shooter. But strangely enough, even though this is the Predator base, I find that you don't face as many Predators as you did on the previous mission. Or at the very least, they're far more spread out. So one of the biggest threats in the previous mission, after taking out the first Predator anti-aircraft gun, was getting swarmed by about 20 or 30 of the fuckers. That doesn't really happen here. They're a lot more spread out, and they're not nearly as densely populated, so you don't have quite as much difficulty with them. Maybe the playtesters knew you were going to be struggling with the corridors enough as it is, and it's like, right, okay, let's lessen the number a little bit, because otherwise people are just going to rage quit. Like, look, how the hell did he complete his training to become a medic when he can't even figure out his way to get through a fucking corridor? So he's going to use waypoints and hopefully bring him back. If he gets taken out, if he dies, he dies, to be honest. And there is another blazer, so let's move him down and see if we can lure them into the kill zone. And here they come. And there we go. Didn't even manage to get a shot off, and already got a few points off. And you can hear that was the starting up of a shrine. So we're going to send our flamethrower troops forward to try and take this, because yeah, they don't take much damage from fires. So it's not just the fact that the flamethrower troops are very useful at being tanks on this mission against shrines and against blazers, but also once we've successfully found Dr. Kadinsky, and once we have the optional Predator artifact, it's going to open the way up to, I guess, kind of like the Predator engine room or something. I'm not too sure what room it is. And for reasons best understood by the Predators themselves, this place is teeming with aliens. I guess that they're trying to put comatose victims because they're still using them for hunting purposes. I don't know. I think if they're obviously being as aggressive as they are now, that they're starting to bring in the actual military level Predators, you would think that they would have given up on the hunting at that point. I'm not too certain. It's not really explained. You could probably just argue it away as it's another challenge they want for the game purpose. But the reason we want the flamethrower is not only so that they can tank some of this flame damage, but because there are carriers in amongst the alien hive, which we haven't really had to face much before. I think there was one on Mission 5 which didn't have any facehuggers on it, so it wasn't much of a threat, and I don't think there was any on Mission 6. I think if you don't take the hive out immediately, they will produce them, but we took them out so quickly that they didn't get the opportunity to use that. Now the carrier is an upgraded carrier and is likely to have close to 12 huggers, 12 face huggers on it. That means even if you kill the damn carrier, because of the exadrenaline you get with the carriers, they're going to spew 12 facehuggers over your squad. And because of the exadrenaline, for a couple of seconds, they are completely immune to damage. So even though we are running the risk of having a few runners blow up in our face because of our flamethrower unit, a few runners blowing up is going to do... It's a problem, for sure. It's less of a problem than 12 invincible facehuggers jumping onto your squad, because that is a surefire way to get your whole squad taken out. And yeah, we're taking a little bit of unfortunate damage there. We tried to have the flamethrowers kind of tank it, and as you see, we have them two at the entrance of that tunnel to try and take most of the damage, but unfortunately the Hydra can shoot past them. Ended up taking out one of our snipers. But I mean, we've made our way over halfway through the Predator base, and so far we only have one casualty to our name. So as far as things go, this is relatively good going. So we're just going to push forward and push onto the center area of it. We're going to try and scout a little bit. Because we are getting close to center, you'll see that they'll come up behind us, and quite fortunate for us, again, the AI is questionable. So that was a military Hydra that we just faced, and in some ways they can either be far more deadly or far less deadly than the Hydras and Hunters. And the reason for that is that the Hydras can be shooting you whilst they're on the move. So no matter what, if you come across a Hydra, you're going to take damage. Whereas the... Sorry, when you come across the Blaze, you can take damage. Whereas the Hydras, they have to stand still. And those are two ancients there. They are very unique predators. When you play the Predator campaign, you only come across one of those. And yeah, let's just get the... It's like putting a potato in an exhaust pipe. We're going to send the flamethrowers ahead to try and just stop off the fire. And unfortunately, one paid the ultimate sacrifice because of the Hydra. So yeah, the two ancients we just saw there. You do get one of them when you play the Predator campaign on the final mission, and they're quite beefy. I think they have about 900 HP, much like your enhanced synthetic. But they're basically just advanced brawlers. They're nothing really that special, except the fact they don't get staggered by rockets. So as you saw, they actually managed to make it into melee range for us, and they are guarding the Predator artifact. But we've picked that up. So that's our optional objective, at least partially completed. We actually need to go out and deploy it on near one of the landing beacons for the optional objective to be complete. But that is at least that section partially done. So we're just going to carry this with us, and then we're pushing forward now to find the Dr. Kadinsky. So we're making pretty good progress. We've gone through a pretty significant portion of the Predator base, and as you can see, these doors here, that's what leads the way to the engine room, which is where the alien hive is. And those doors will only open once you found Kadinsky. Now, Kadinsky is located just south of where we picked up this artifact. It's quite strange that it's, you know, an optional objective when the location for it is literally something you come across before you come across Kadinsky, but that's the way we do it. And rather than trying to move our entire force, because as we've seen before, when we're on the move is when we are most vulnerable. So we've managed to lure out most of the enemies, and there's a bloody stalker here. We're just going to run him down with our 4 shotguns. So we're going to use our non-enhanced synthetics to basically go and scout ahead. And that means if there's like any stalkers, we can deal with them at the very least. And just have a little peruse, see if we can pick him up rather than putting our whole squad at risk. So just south of where that object was, you will find Kadinsky, who has been tortured to death. And the reason that the Predators don't like them, if you play through the Predator campaign, it kind of explains where basically a Predator was captured alive, which is a big no-no in Predator society. And not only that, all of the weird experiments they were doing on the aliens. So the Predators were not too fond of the late Doctor and wanted him dealt with. So every now and then, some of the Predators are going to come up behind us from different sections of the base. So that's why we want to try and keep them relatively immobile and secured in one position so that we can gun any ones that come up behind us, because if they start shooting our snipers at the back of our squad, they're going to take them out relatively quickly. So, oh god, there's always one. It's the synthetics now. They're malfunctioning. Like, it's not that they're scared. They're just, you know, they've been playing the knife chop 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 finger game too much, and they must have severed a few neurological nerves in the process. So we're going to, again, do a little bit of a lore for the aliens. It's always more dangerous to do it for the aliens than the predators because they are so much quicker. And it doesn't help when you can't get good synthetics these days. Yeah, there's a military Hydra there, but fortunately he's not standing still, so we can just snipe him out before he can bring his weapons to bear.
Yes, understood.
So we're just going to do a little bit of scout, but we have to be very cautious not to cause too much ire moving forward. And most of the aliens are up the top here, so if we use him to scout ahead a little bit, and there they are, right up there. The hive is quite devastating. Not only are there a lot of them, and they have Ravagers and the aforementioned carrier, that's probably the biggest threat you're going to be facing on this mission, but just a combination of everything. And fortunately, because there are so many tight corridors, we can use that to our advantage. So they're going to be forced to come at us down one route. So not only are they going to get caught in the crossfire of our SADAR troopers, which are going to be releasing a salvo. Oh, he's getting bugged out by runners. And this is why you have to be a little bit careful with using the enhanced synthetic in case he gets kind of bugged out there. But also the case that with the snipers with our railgun, if they're firing down, then they're probably going to hit several aliens in a row. So we're just going to... He still has quite a decent chunk of health, so we're just keeping him to the north side to tank a little bit of what's coming in. And Jesus Christ, even with all of that, the Praetorian managed to make it into our group.
Understood.
Yeah, a big threat here. Arguably, the aliens are now a bigger threat than the predators on this mission. Almost exclusively because of the fucking carriers. Yeah. It's ironic how the juveniles of the alien race, the facehuggers, are more dangerous than most of the adult aliens if they're used right.
Understood.
So just going to try and lure these out, and we have a nice little cool zone set up here. It's just a few of the lesser aliens at the moment, just drones and runners, nothing too major. And obviously here we come across the hive node, so we know we're getting close. And a few pred aliens that we almost got caught on, and there is a Ravager, so we're going to try and use the synthetic to run them around a little bit, because we do not want that fucking thing anywhere near our troops, because they're going to start doing some serious damage. And another benefit of having the SADAR troopers upgraded so they fire the salvo is that they do actually do a very slight amount of fire damage, which is going to help prevent the Ravagers from regenerating. I mean, usually they die so close to you, they're going to be getting hit by so many munitions that they don't have an opportunity to undergo the regenesis anyway. But every little helps in this case. Even the extra radiation from our Smartgunner, if he's still alive. Yes, he is. There he is. He's doing his job. Good old chap. And I'm just trying to be very, very careful. Obviously, as I've mentioned before, we have that carrier to worry about, who is going to be the biggest threat. So I want to make sure if we come across him, then we are able to just completely blaze it with fire so it doesn't get near us. So I'm going to use the Flamethrower to kind of like block the hallways as we were doing earlier. Let's just have a little scout through, make sure there's no aliens that are left behind here. And fortunately, I don't think they are. Again, I do have to question, I mean, if they are in such a dangerous part of the Predator ship, I mean, obviously the objective says that we have to set our bomb off in this section. So we know that this is a critical part. Yeah, the generator room. Why the fuck do they have aliens in here? Or is it just a case that the Predators are also struggling and... ah, motherfucker. As you can see, a blazer's coming from the south and it's caused us problems while we're also trying to deal with the aliens. So let's see if we can get the flamethrower to try and deal with that. And that was what we was worried about, getting hit from two sides with them. But fortunately, the blazers, the damage they do instantly, I mean, obviously with being fire-based, it's more over time. So they don't completely fuck us up immediately like the Hydras do. And we only managed to lose one sniper there, so we're still relatively okay. They're literally just around the corner, just getting stuck on the walls trying to come in. I think it's mostly just facehuggers here. Let's try and push onwards, obviously being very, very cautious. Not only of any aliens come from the side, but also the fucking predators. And you won't even be given the opportunity to put your nuke down until you've cleared the place out, which can actually be quite beneficial because then you know if there's anyone left that's going to be ambushing you. So, as we've done in a few missions before, we're going to be attacking some of these hive nodes in an attempt to try and draw some of them towards us instead of just running into the belly of the beast, as it were. And there is the queen. Obviously she has swollen eggs now, so only send flamethrowers and synthetics forward, otherwise they're liable to spew on all of your troops. And just get absolutely munted, queen. Oh, got a little bit too close. It's very fortunate that the SADAR troopers don't have any friendly fire, so they can just fire rockets at the front of our troops and not kill anyone. But very fortunate that they have smart targeting on that. And again, we managed to lose one troop there because we're in a very awkward position in this corridor. So although our snipers are able to shoot through the walls, a lot of our other troops aren't. So again, the terrain is as much of a threat as the actual enemies. But that was a big chunk of them taken out. Obviously, that was the queen. Can't put it past them that they're not making another Praetorian into a queen as we speak. But it's enough to at least slow them down. We've done a big number to them. So let's just scout ahead a little bit. We have an alien sack there. And yeah, just take them out as they spew out. Obviously, the facehuggers are completely weak to synthetic, and we have cleared out the area. I'm quite surprised actually. We must have killed the carrier in the crossfire, or maybe it just didn't spawn that time. I don't know. That's quite strange. Now it sounds like I'm lying, doesn't it? In all honesty, there is a carrier usually in that section, and it is a very big threat. So flamethrower is very, very useful. Now, fortunately, once you've cleared it out, you can usually keep the enhanced synthetic there. Although there are some predators still roaming around the place, they tend to stay away from the generator room. So you can just keep them there, and as you try and move everyone else out. And not just for, you know, because I like to get into the character and I want to pull all of my men back, god damn it. But also we have the optional objective of this predator artifact. So we do actually need to bring everyone else out first anyway to put that at a beacon, and then once we get the predator artifact to the beacon, we can deploy the nuke and just bomb all of it. And if you have any troops in the predator base, when it goes off, they all get wiped out. I mean, you still complete the mission because it doesn't matter if your whole squad gets wiped out. You've done the objectives, but it just feels bad, you know. I know that it's just a game. I remember reading a meme a little while ago when people were saying that games were going to make people lack empathy and stuff. And then I'm sitting there going, when I play RPGs, I don't want to say certain actions in case they're a bit too mean and offend the NPC characters. Like, I get quite invested in them. And I think there was actually a bit of research done, because obviously there are certain games where you can go for the good route or the evil route. And even when you have the opportunity to do that without repercussions, only a very small minority will go for the evil route, like about 10% of people. And even then, a lot of the time, people that do that, they'll either make a completely different playthrough, or they'll quick save, do something evil, and then load it up again. Not many people take pleasure in going through the complete evil route, especially not in the first playthrough. So Don't know where that's come from. Maybe there's a few people with psychopathic tendencies who will always play through that play style. But for the most part, even in video games, I think people can kind of get into the role-playing aspect to a certain extent, especially if the game is well written. And you know, if you have the option of being a good guy and a bad guy, you don't usually want to be a bad guy, because even throughout history, I mean, most of the evil people thought they were doing good. I don't think there's many people throughout history who genuinely think they were bad guys. I mean, what's the expression? The path to hell was paved with good intentions. People don't enjoy being with social creatures. We want to be the good guy, and I want to bring my squad out. God damn it! They're all gonna get commendations for having taken out the predator base. So yeah, just pull everyone back. And as we can see, we've pretty much just gone down the right side of the base. We don't have to explore the whole place. Place that down by the landing pad, and our optional objective is complete. So our enhanced aesthetic, may God rest his soul in Silicon Heaven, is ready to deploy the nuke and send the predators to hell.
Understood.
If he can just get to the right spot. And with that, we have successfully completed the Marine campaign of Alien vs Predator Extinction. We don't get any kind of reward, like any kind of ending cinematic. And yeah, 147 kills, so not nearly as many as the previous mission. You even get 5 minutes less for your target time to complete it. So we're all done. Now on to the Bestiary. Overview. Reinforcements and upgrades. The USCM orders reinforcements and field upgrades via the CommTech Marine. He does this by calling a dropship down on whatever visited dropship beacon is nearest his current location. Naturally, there is a small amount of transit time before reinforcements arrive. Earning credits. Marines earn credits in two ways. One, they can repair Atmos with a CommTech and receive a continuous stream of credits while the Atmo remains operational. And two, they can receive a small bounty for each slain enemy. There are a limited number of Atmos available during each mission, each of which provides a fixed sum over its lifespan. Accordingly, Marine detachments must ensure they maintain sufficient force levels to secure subsequent Atmos and complete their mission. Healing and repairing. Marines can heal their organic forces with the medic. They can use the CommTech to repair robotic and mechanical troops and equipment, including the synthetic, Sentry Gun, ExoSuit, and the all-important Atmo. Healing and repairing are free, but a given medic or CommTech can only heal or repair one target at a time, making the process somewhat time-consuming. Detecting enemies. The USCM can detect cloak predators with the synthetic or the Sentry Gun, both of which are equipped with cloak defeating sensors. The synthetic can additionally detect and highlight moving objects outside of its standard visual range, and the upgraded Sentry Gun has the ability to respond to ranged enemies attacking from beyond its field of view. Robotic support platforms. Marines have a variety of robotic and mechanical troops and equipment, including the synthetic, Sentry Gun, ExoSuit, and the Atmo. These forces are immune to a number of side effects, including radiation, acid scarring, virulence, spores, cysts, and bleeder spears. Strengths. Marines can deliver the most concentrated firepower of any of the species. Every Marine combatant is capable of attacking at range, and many of their weapons can damage small groups of enemies simultaneously. Marines are not as numerous as aliens, but they are typically far more numerous than predators. Weaknesses. Marines are the most physically frail of the species, and are therefore the easiest to kill. They are under constant pressure to secure the next Atmo in order to preserve a continual flow of revenue. The USCM must also ensure that it has an ample number of CommTechs on the ground, since they are their detachment's critical link to the dropship and its ability to deliver reinforcements. CommTechs are inexpensive and numerous, but they are also relatively easy to kill. Description: the CommTech, USCM slang for Communications Officer/Technician, is the support core of every USCM deployment force. His responsibilities include calling in dropships and repairing field equipment and robotic support systems, including those that provide alternative revenue streams for the USCM. Because he is the primary communications link with the dropship attached to the platoon, he controls its ability to order reinforcements and battlefield upgrades. Default weapon. The default weapon of the CommTech is the MP9 Close Assault Machine Gun. While a reasonable weapon against soft targets, it does not have the stopping power to defend the CommTech against heavier enemies. Characteristics: dropship uplink. The CommTech performs the crucial role of calling in dropships filled with reinforcements. He also orders field upgrades, enabling commanders to make mid-mission decisions about weapon system updates. The CommTech has a policy of calling the current dropship to the closest visited dropship beacon. For obvious reasons, dropship beacons never exist indoors, so a CommTech inside a building or cave must consider additional transit time for reinforcements. Field repairs. The CommTech has sufficient training and technical expertise to repair a wide range of battlefield systems and colonial support equipment, including synthetics, sentry guns, exosuits, and atmospheric processors. It is the ability to repair atmospheric processors that gives the USCM its primary source of field revenue. As a group, CommTechs tend to be fairly energetic, so they often proactively start repairs on nearby damages in the absence of more pressing tasks. Upgrade: Aurora Control. Veteran CommTechs often have clearance to give the kill word to the Aurora, a space-based high-energy assassination system found aboard many orbital cruisers. While the Aurora is capable of autonomously destroying enemies, current safety procedures demand that a CommTech first confirm any targets. There is only one Aurora, so multiple CommTechs must share it, effectively serializing its attacks. Strengths. The CommTech performs several critical support roles. First, he is necessary to repair atmospheric processors and thereby secure field funding for the USCM. Second, he is the only trooper capable of ordering upgrades and reinforcements. Third, he is uniquely able to repair mechanical equipment. Fourth, the upgraded CommTech is capable of enemy force degradation at extreme range. Given their criticality, veteran commanders typically have at least 2 CommTechs in the field at all times. Weaknesses. While armed, the CommTech is ill-equipped for heavy fighting. He relies on other forces in the platoon for protection, as he easily falls to most enemies. If a platoon ever loses all of its CommTechs, it is cut off from its dropship and therefore likely to be written off as an operational casualty. Also, it remains all too common for CommTechs to forget at critical moments that the Aurora is blocked from firing on indoor targets. Description: 1 or more USCM medics are typically attached to each platoon as a way of ensuring that colonial marines get prompt medical attention during engagements. A given medic can tend to the wounds of a single soldier at a time. Default weapon: M4A3 pistol. The default weapon of the medic is the M4A3 pistol. It is something of a weapon of last resort, as it is largely ineffective at stopping most aliens and predators. Characteristics: the medic is the only marine that can heal that all-important organic component of the USCM, the soldiers themselves. He can be commanded to heal a specific soldier directly, or he can be left to prioritize triage tasks or nearby troops himself. Upgrade. Counter-Xenology. The veteran medic receives counter-xenology training, which improves his overall restorative skills and gives him the ability to counteract many of the hideous side effects experienced by human soldiers fighting inhuman enemies. An upgraded medic can cure a soldier of the semi-permanent wounds caused by acid scarring, the cystic tumours caused by drones, the body-wrenching nausea caused by runners, and the repeat hemorrhaging caused by the stalker's bleeder spears. Strengths. Without the medic, the Marines have no ability to heal the wounds they sustain during engagements. The upgraded medic is often particularly necessary for surviving combat with the aliens, as their otherwise untreatable acid burns become a critical mechanism by which aliens wear down their opponents. Against the predators, the upgraded medic is often necessary to save Marine detachments from the severe blood loss that accompanies a predator-stalker ambush. Weaknesses. The medic is a support soldier, not a primary combatant. As such, he requires the protection of other troop types and cannot be counted on to engage enemies successfully on his own. Also, a medic cannot typically tend to his own wounds, so it is usually wise to have at least 2 or more on any drop. Description. A synthetic accompanies each USCM platoon to provide combat support for its fellow soldiers. Current combat doctrine has the synthetic carrying the detachment's motion tracker, since it defeats cloaking fields and predators seem less interested in killing artificial life forms. The synthetic is also equipped with industrial muscular systems, so it can offload heavy lifting tasks from other Marines. These same systems enable the synthetic to run faster than humans and therefore excel at battlefield recon. Default weapon: M4A3 pistol. The default weapon of the synthetic is the M4A3 pistol. It is something of a weapon of last resort, as it is largely ineffective at stopping most alien characteristics. Augmented detection. The synthetic carries an advanced motion detector that relays its feedback directly into the synthetic's ocular systems. This device provides 2 functions. First, it serves as an early warning system by highlighting enemy movements far beyond normal visual range, and second, it defeats the cloaking field used by predators, enabling Marine forces to pinpoint and target otherwise cloaked predators. Characteristics. Pack Mule Bionics. The synthetic is the only Marine combatant strong enough to carry the current generation of redeployable Sentry Guns without severe performance degradation. This ability to do the heavy lifting often comes in handy in a variety of operational situations, as various missions frequently demand any number of difficult to carry objects be delivered to and from contentious areas. Upgrade. Combat modifications. Given its various better-than-human abilities, the synthetic's combat suitability is not lost on the USCM. Unfortunately, bureaucratic inertia and cultural factors have so far limited combat-modified synthetics to serving as hardened scouts. As such, the combat synthetic has enhanced locomotion subsystems, better ocular implants, and subcutaneous armor. Moreover, its modular construction often enables an upgraded synthetic to be brought back from the dead if repaired in time. Strengths. The synthetic is best utilized as a scout and an anti-stealth operative. Its cloak detection capabilities, speed, visual range, and toughness allow it to survive dangerous scouting missions against non-human species. and its upgrade often enables the synthetic to be recovered after fatal recon missions, even if the synthetic has been beheaded. Seasoned commanders also rely on its robotic construction, which renders it immune to many effects that would cripple or kill organics. Weaknesses. Though its upgrade gives it a combat shotgun capable of knocking back lighter enemies, the synthetic is not capable of inflicting enough damage overall to make it a serious danger. Also, attacks that destroy their targets completely, typically via flame or acid, prevent a downed combat synthetic from being able to be restored to an operational state. Description. Equipped with the standard issue M41 pulse rifle and M3 personal armor, the Infantry Marine is the basic foot soldier of the USCM. He is typically seen in larger numbers than other Marines, and often forms the backbone of most platoons. His weapon fires armor-piercing rounds, which make him a good all-round fighter, able to attack lighter and heavier enemies alike. Default weapon, M41 pulse rifle. The default weapon of the Infantry Marine is the M41 pulse rifle. This weapon fires bursts of light armor piercing rounds at targets, making it an excellent performer in a variety of circumstances. Characteristics. Close assault. When enemies are far away, the Infantry Marine takes aimed shots. When enemies are close, he has the opportunity to let loose on full auto, effectively doubling his overall attack damage. This makes the Infantry Marine more effective than most other troops when enemy melee attackers are loose among the ranks. Upgrade. Heavy Assault Kit. When upgraded, the Infantry Marine replaces the M41 pulse rifle with the M41A and M3 personal armor with M4X armor. The M41A possesses an underslung grenade launcher capable of damaging multiple opponents simultaneously. While still undergoing field testing, the M4X armor has improved ability to stop kinetic and acid attacks. The armor is attached to a lightweight body frame that assists the Infantry Marine in staying on his feet when struck by the powerful attacks of inhuman enemies. Strengths. Infantry are useful in almost any situation, particularly in numbers. Their armor-piercing rounds are successful against heavily armored enemies, and the grenade launcher is useful for damaging multiple targets simultaneously. They have excellent staying power as far as human soldiers go, and this, combined with their close assault ability, makes them adept at defending their compatriots when the enemy has gotten a little too close. Weaknesses. While infantry are useful in almost all situations, they are a victim of the old adage, a jack of all trades and master of none. Flamethrower Marines are better at attacking multiple enemies. Smartgunners are better at attacking lightly armoured targets, and snipers and SADAR troopers are better at attacking hard targets. Description. The Flamethrower Marine is a close assault trooper that excels at attacking multiple enemies simultaneously at short range. His unique ape suit provides excellent protection against heat and acid based attacks and partial immunity to facehugging. Default weapon, M240B Flamethrower. Offering fire control superior to that of its predecessor, the Flamethrower Marine's next generation flamethrower excels at simultaneously searing multiple enemies in its fiery blast cone. The weapon performs better against close targets, since its flame is more concentrated at the launch nozzle. The weapon's fuel is somewhat adhesive, and therefore continues to heat even non-flammable targets after the flamethrower itself has ceased firing. Characteristics: Ape Suit. The Flamethrower Marine's high-tech Ape Suit provides protection from extreme heat, particularly from the backdrafts of his own weapon, and from hazardous materials, even alien acid. The suit's unique design includes a molded helmet facehuggers find almost impossible to grasp, let alone burn through, given its acid resistance. As such, the Flamethrower Marine cannot be facehugged unless he is first rendered unconscious, thus giving a facehugger time to pry off his helmet. Upgrade: Cobalt Thermogel. Most Terran governments consider dirty weapons acceptable for use against predators and aliens, species that hunt humans for sport or exterminate them through parasitization do not deserve the protection of the Geneva Convention. Cobalt Thermogel is a dirty, slow-burn flamethrower fuel that releases incandescent filaments of radioactive cobalt-60 into the air. These filaments severely poison nearby living things, causing substantial and continuous long-term damage. Strengths: The Flamethrower Marine is excellent against melee attackers, since they must close to attack, and closing means exposure to the flamethrower's area of effect. Flame is useful against aliens, since it prevents several alien species from exploding on death or recovering from grievous wounds. The Ape Suit protects the Flamethrower Marine from thermal attacks, making him an ideal spotter against enemies that employ them. Finally, he excels at hive assault, given his semi-immunity to facehuggers. Weaknesses: Several enemies are quite resistant to heat attacks, including Predaliens, Spearmasters, and military predators. Accordingly, these enemies are to be avoided by the Flamethrower Marine. The alien runner's tendency to explode in a hail of organic shrapnel when ignited makes it a particularly dangerous enemy to attack as well. Description: The Smartgunner sacrifices penetrating power for extraordinary fire rates and exceptional accuracy. His weapon is capable of inflicting more damage per unit time against unarmored or lightly armored opponents than most other weapon systems in the USCM arsenal. Default weapon: M57 Smartgun. The M57 is the sequel to the M56 Smartgun, used for the better part of the last 2 decades. Unlike the M56, the M57's gun barrel does not autonomously track targets. Instead, the gun coordinates multiple guided projectiles. This increases fire rate significantly, reduces operator combat fatigue, and sidesteps lengthy training requirements. It also means that an M57 round can dynamically retarget mid-flight, should the firing M57 determine that the round's initial target has already been defeated. Upgrade: M57D Dirty Smartgun. The M57D is an utterly vicious weapon that is sanctioned for extreme circumstances only. It fires rounds that shatter into hundreds of radioactive splinters inside their target, causing human survivors of this weapon to develop all manner of debilitating long-term health problems. It can create truly astounding radiation levels in larger targets, forcing these enemies to lose health for extended periods of time. Naturally, the upgraded Smartgunner wears radiation-shielded armor as a safety precaution. Strengths: The Smartgunner is best used against large numbers of unarmored targets, particularly facehuggers. When upgraded, the The Smartgunner improves at damaging heavier targets, and the radiation levels it causes can often kill enemies long after a battle is over. Radiation prevents the roaming regeneration possessed by some aliens. It also prevents predators from cloaking effectively by making them detectable with the radiation monitor included in the standard USCM Battlefield Safety Kit. Weaknesses. The Smartgunner's shots cannot penetrate tougher armors particularly well. As such, heavily armoured opponents such as Praetorians and Vanguards tend to make short work of the Smartgunner if he is not protected by troops with better penetrating power. Also, the Smartgunner is fairly expensive to deploy, so he is best kept to the rear of any combat detachment where he can be shielded from melee attackers. Description. The sniper hits targets at extreme range with powerful armor-piercing rounds. Default weapon, M42C Sniper Rifle. The M42C Sniper Rifle has almost double the range of standard USCM weaponry. It also has the power to penetrate even armoured vehicles. It can put a 3-inch hole in APC armour from several miles away. Unsurprisingly, there are no predators or aliens with armour sufficient to stop this weapon's rounds. With this power comes a price, however. The weapon has a poor rate of fire and is almost useless in close combat situations. Upgrade. The Sledgehammer. The M44 Sledgehammer represents the current pinnacle of human achievement with respect to infantry scale weapons technology. It is a personal railgun that fires hyperkinetic slugs that use a controlled fusion reaction to melt a channel through obstacles. The result is a weapon that can strike enemies through walls of almost arbitrary thickness or penetrate multiple enemies one after the other. Solid materials slow the slug down, however, causing it to inflict less damage on subsequent targets. Strengths. The sniper is best used to degrade heavily armoured targets from a distance. This way, her tremendous range and excellent hitting power can be used to maximum effect. When upgraded, the sniper ironically becomes an excellent tunnel fighter, since the sledgehammer enables her to strike at targets from behind walls and deny the enemy the ability to retaliate. She is also useful for attacking targets that exploit terrain features to shield themselves from attackers at lower altitudes. Weaknesses. The sniper has a slow firing rate since she must precisely aim each one of her shots. As such, she is almost helpless when facing nearby melee attackers. The sniper is about striking enemies from standoff range or from behind a protective screen of tougher troops, not engaging targets up close. Her complete lack of armour only underscores this fact. Description. The SADAR trooper is the heavy artillery of the USCM. He fires a guided missile capable of heavily damaging whatever it hits and sending anything light nearby hurtling into the air. Given the tremendous collateral damage this weapon can cause, the SADAR trooper is trained to fire only at targets beyond a minimum safety distance. Default weapon, M83 SADAR. The M83 SADAR, shoulder-launched active homing disposable anti-tank rocket, is the premier anti-armor weapon available to a USCM light platoon. It has a long range and a reasonable firing rate, especially considering the damage the weapon can inflict. It can lock onto most targets and seek them unerringly, making it a devastating weapon when repeatedly fired from a protected position. Upgrade. M83AM SADAR AMAG. Once it becomes clear that individually armoured tank crew could survive a SADAR hit, the USCM redesigned the weapon to ensure the destruction of both tank and crew. The result is the SADAR AMAG, Aerosol Magnesium, a weapon that penetrates heavy armour and discharges multiple megathermal payloads in its interior. Naturally, it works quite well against predators and aliens, since it delivers a high-impact detonation that exposes numerous targets to blast furnace temperatures. Strengths. The SADAR Trooper is an excellent support choice. When properly protected, he can cause massive damage and significant disruption among the ranks of the enemy, preventing many from even being able to counterattack. The SADAR AMAG is even more powerful, since it also saturates its targets with white-hot fires. This makes the SADAR Trooper the premier counter to purebreed aliens, provided he is protected long enough to deliver multiple payloads. Weaknesses. The SADAR Trooper has light armour and a fairly long minimum range. As a result, any enemy that closes on him has the ability to inflict severe damage without fear of retribution. The SADAR should be particularly wary of the Spearmaster and Runner. The Spearmaster shrugs off flame-based damage and is agile enough to remain standing in the face of such firepower, while the Runner is fast enough to close before the SADAR Trooper can even fire. Description. The ExoSuit is a micro-scale heavy armour solution, bringing the offensive and defensive benefits of larger combat vehicles to the individual soldier. It is designed for heavy assault in difficult environments by combining staggering firepower with a range of integrated protective systems. Default weapon: twin M103 torrent cannons. By default, the ExoSuit comes equipped with an M103 torrent cannon attached to each arm. These weapons are linked and work together to saturate a broad firing arc with projectiles. When a torrent cannon attacks, it initially fires at a moderate rate and covers a small arc, but spins up until it absolutely blankets a large area with its firepower. Those enemies not amply protected often lose their full freedom of movement as they struggle to survive the onslaught. Characteristics: compound armor system. The ExoSuit protects its operator with a suite of integrated systems. First, it has compound multi-layered armor that enables it to deflect lighter projectiles outright. Second, its integrated anti-NBC, nuclear, biological and chemical systems permanently protects its wearer from a range of alien inflictions, including spores, cysts, virulence, acid scarring and face hugging. Third, the system is largely impervious to radiation and fire. Upgrade: solid-state cannons. The ExoSuit's upgrade replaces the mechanical torrent cannon with an electronically triggered projectile array, known affectionately as the bullet box, a grid of railguns that come pre-filled with bullets. These railguns can fire simultaneously and with sufficient frequency to launch multiple projectiles before their predecessors have even left the barrel. The result is a weapon that fires nearly 1,000 rounds a second, or RPS, a volume of ordnance sufficient to liquefy most targets within seconds. Strengths: the ExoSuit's fire rate enables it to suppress and shred large numbers of enemies, making it particularly useful against melee attackers since they have a hard time closing inside the weapon's attack cone. While it does not fire armor-piercing rounds, the ExoSuit's fire rate is so great that even heavily armoured targets can succumb to it, given enough time. Finally, the suit's compound protective systems make it ideal against attacks that otherwise cause side effects on organic troops. Weaknesses. The ExoSuit's biggest weaknesses are its limited speed and maneuverability, byproducts of its heavy protective systems. Also, while the ExoSuit's rate of fire makes the issue less significant than it might be, the suit's bullets have neither great penetrating power nor long range. A number of enemies are specialised for attacking heavier opponents and can exploit these weaknesses. Also, the ExoSuit's designers have yet to integrate the ape suit's recent advances towards full acid resistance. Description. The Sentry Gun is the standard USCM defensive emplacement. It has ample armour and no meaningful weak points, enabling it to last longer than its human counterparts. An autocannon with a high rate of fire complements its toughness, making it an excellent choice for holding corridors against large numbers of enemies. Default weapon, M30 autocannon. The Sentry Gun is equipped with a rapid-fire autocannon capable of massively damaging large numbers of lightly armoured aggressors. Characteristics. Active cloak detection. Every Sentry Gun has an active sensor system capable of defeating predator cloaking. The information collected by this sensor is automatically relayed to the visual support systems of nearby soldiers, enabling them to see cloaked predators as if they were uncloaked. Upgrade. Huntbuster revision. After early field experience with the predators, the USCM hastily upgraded the standard Sentry Gun so that it could protect soldiers from predator snipers. A Huntbuster Sentry Gun has a built-in counter-ballistic system that calculates the source of incoming fire and uses a tight beam cloak-defeating scanner to light it up. The Huntbuster maintains a lock on an enemy, so revealed, enabling its rapid-fire sniper rifle to dissuade it from continuing to attack. Strengths. The Sentry Gun excels at defending an area long enough for a commander to respond with reinforcements. Its toughness and ample hitting power make it an excellent distraction for enemies that might otherwise focus on softer targets. When upgraded, the Sentry Gun becomes the combatant of choice for countering long-range predators. Clever commanders often lure these enemies into attacking a target within range of a Huntbuster in order to reveal them for counterattack by snipers and the Aurora. Weaknesses. The most significant drawbacks of the Sentry Gun are that it cannot move without assistance and that it is heavy enough to require a synthetic for repositioning. This limits the weapon's effectiveness during highly mobile missions. Less obvious, but almost as important, is the Sentry Gun's inability to penetrate the armour of tougher opponents. This is particularly true of its sniper rifle, which is designed for long range and rapid fire rather than penetrating power.